The war between the demon lord and humans lasted for many years and took many human lives. The world was plunged into chaos, and then the demon lord fell at the hands of Alexandrite, who wielded the sacred sword, turfing. The man finished the story by saying that everyone lived happily ever after. The child who was sitting on his lap asked his father if it was true that the sword really existed, to which the man replied that who knows. The woman called the boy by name and said that it was time for him to sleep, while Maine spoke of the holy sword turfing. The child held the book in his hands and with a smile on his face thought that someday he too would have such a sword, and he would go on a real adventure. 5 years have passed since then. Maine looked at the large formation and happily said that this was the capital's temple. The young boy looked ahead with a smile and wondered if he was really here to get his skills. Suddenly he heard a boy next to him scream, asking why he was doing this, because with such skills it would be difficult for him, to which the woman next to him replied that the boy could help her around the house. A skill is a kind of talent that a young man can get at the age of 15. A person can only get 3 such skills. From what he heard, Maine concluded that it seemed that the boy was not very lucky with the skill. Even though people's skills are supposed to be kept secret, many people talk about them for the sake of credibility. And some people who work with skills specifically write about them on advertising posters. Even the king announced his skills. His first skill is Holy Two-Handed Sword, and the second is Physical Strength. Together, these 2 skills give the greatest strength in the world. Mine, standing on the stairs in front of the entrance, thought that now he is an ordinary village hunter, but after receiving skills, he will definitely change his life. Maine climbed the stairs and approached the entrance, where he was stopped by a knight who asked the boy if he had come to learn his skill, to which Maine replied in the affirmative. The knight asked the boy to introduce himself, to which Maine gave his name and said that he was 15 years old today. The knight answered the boy affirmatively and told him to go to the circle. He pointed out that the boy should put his hand on the pearl and rejoice that he had become an adult. Maine went towards the ball with a smile, rejoicing that he had become an adult. He reached out his hand to the pearl in front of him, remembering how 5 years ago his parents died from an epidemic, yet the boy managed to survive, and now he is already 15. Maine thought that all this was thanks to the support of everyone in the village and God's grace. The young man, standing in front of the ball and placing his palm on it, sincerely thanked all the people who helped him. Suddenly, a huge force enveloped the young man from all sides, and energy fields appeared nearby. Mine exclaimed in surprise at what was happening. The knights approached the boy with words of congratulations. They said that the boy had just received his skills. They looked at the ball to report the skill and in shock exclaimed that it was the skill cut paste. The knights exclaimed that this was so unusual, and Mine asked again in bewilderment. The young man asked what he meant by unusual. Maine thought that he often saw the skill of cutting among village hunters. It was used to cut up the carcasses of animals they had caught. Maine has seen the skill insert used in workshops. It can be used to fix any tool by simply connecting the parts together. The knight standing in front of the boy explained that cut and paste were fairly popular skills, but few people would have both at once. They also pointed out Evaluate Max, the first time the knights had seen this skill. One of the knights explained that it can be used to find out a person's name, gender, or profession. This skill is also called the Eye of God. It shows complete information about a person, but it is up to the young man how he will use it. The knights in front of the young man finished by saying that everything was in the boy's hands because skill was life itself. Mine thanked the knights with a smile. The boy left the capital's temple. He rode in a small carriage along the street and thought that from this place to Lucas it was half a day's ride, when suddenly his thoughts were interrupted by a voice that shouted the boy's name. The man who called out to Maine was riding on the same leash as the boy. The man said something about how strange it was that Maine had come to the capital, to which the boy responded in surprise, calling Mr. Edgar by name. They were still riding in the carriage, and Mr. Edgar was talking in surprise about how the boy had grown so quickly. Maine asked the man if Lucas's gatekeeper was really resting today. Edgar answered in the negative, saying that he was lost in thought. He said that something was wrong. Mr. Edgar frowned and said that he had recently gone to the guild of a friend who had seen orcs in the Lucas forest. Mine exclaimed in shock that he went there every day and that orcs were dangerous demons that ate both people and cattle. He said that they could eat him like that too. Lord Edgar said that he always thought that orcs lived far from Lucas forest. The man told the young man to be careful if he went into the forest. The man yawned widely and apologized to Maine, saying that he was very sleepy, and then asked to wake him up when they got there. Maine agreed and told the man to rest. The young man looked outside and thought that maybe he should take a nap too, when suddenly he thought of something. Maine looked towards the man and thought that he needed to test his skills. The guy thought that the skill definition max can show everything about a person. He was curious how it works. Maine sat for a moment looking at the man and decided that he would try to assess Mr. Edgar. The guy looked at the man carefully and used his skill. The aim of the skill was directed at the sleeping Edgar, and then information about the man, who was 24 years old, was displayed. He is a guard, his name is Edgar Mansell, and his skills are two-handed sword, holy, and politeness. Mine stared in shock and couldn't believe that this was Edgar's data. He also couldn't believe his skills. The guy looked at the man and thought that he had amazing skills and nothing was scary with such a guard. He looked at the other passengers and thought that he worked on the others too. Of course, you can't divulge other people's skills, but he wanted to take a peek. Mine was shocked he could see the skills of even those people he saw for the first time. He thought that this was probably his skill evaluation maximum. The guy looked at himself and realized that he could even evaluate himself, when suddenly his attention was drawn to the man opposite him. The man opposite was a man named Jeskart. He was a thief with the skills sewing, dagger sharp, speed small. Maine was shocked to think that this man was a thief. The guy wondered why the thief was in this cart, whether he got there by accident or not. The boy looked at Mr. Edgar, who was in a deep sleep, and thought that the rest of the people were just ordinary adventurers without any comrades. Mine followed the road and thought that the rocky road that would soon end was a good chance for a thief. The young man thought that he should do something, but God's eye was not an offensive skill. The boy remembered that cut was a skill that allowed him to process corpses, but he was afraid to try it on the living. Maine sat and thought about what to do when suddenly he thought of something. He looked closely at the thief's boots opposite. The guy used the skill insert. He was glad that it worked, and then he thought that now he should do the same with the sword. He used the skill again. Mine thought about how, with his skills, he had connected the shoe and the floor, the sheath and the blade. It was too late to warn the others, so the boy decided that only he knew the truth. The young man thought that the skill is life itself. If the skills are combined, you can get a lot. Mine was fixated on combining and wondered what would happen if he used cut. Mine used his skill on the person in front of him, and after a moment he looked at his hand in shock. He had managed to cut out someone else's skill after all. Mine wondered if he could insert it into himself. He placed his hand on his chest and used the insert skill. The guy thought that you can only get 3 skills from God. They can't be changed or increased. However, the guy opened his eyes and saw that he already had 5 skills. Mine became very tense and wondered if it was a good thing, since he just took away someone else's skills. Suddenly, a clatter and shouts were heard from the side. The passengers of the cart turned around in surprise, and one guy asked what it was. A large number of armed men on horses rushed towards the cart. Someone exclaimed that they were robbers. Maine looked at the robbers and thought that here they were. Mr. Edgar had already woken up by this time, and the man opposite the guy laughed. He jumped up from his seat and swore loudly, then shouted that if they did not want to die in this place, they should throw down their weapons. He grabbed the hilt of his sword, but immediately stopped. The sheath and the sword were firmly connected. The man wanted to move away, but his leg was also connected to the floor, causing him to fall with a crash. The passengers in the carriage looked at the man in surprise, and one of the guys wondered what was wrong with him. The lying thief was asked what he would do now, since he was nobody without his dagger. The man was ordered to be tied up, which made him swear loudly. Meanwhile, Maine looked out of the cart. The young man said something about what was catching up with them. He started counting the robbers one by one, and it turned out that there were 8 people following them. The guy shouted that he had to assess their skills. Suddenly, an arrow flew towards them. One of the guys managed to grab Maine and pull him to the side, so the arrow did not hit him. The guy shouted a question about what Maine was doing because he almost got hit. The young man touched the scratch on his cheek and said that he had escaped with only a scratch, and then looked ahead because he had managed to assess the robbers. Mine looked seriously at the information in front of him and thought that he needed to cut out the particularly dangerous skills first. The girl riding the horse pulled the bowstring and laughingly said that she could see everything, so they should be envied. The girl froze for a moment, then grabbed her eyes, asking what was wrong with them. The man next to her asked what she was doing. The man shouted with a smile that he would destroy the carriage with his magic. He prepared to attack, but at that moment Mine used his skill cut, causing the man to fail to summon the wind. He exclaimed that his skill was not working, and the man next to him shouted that he was the same, and then asked what was going on. Mine stood there at this time, frowning slightly and wiping away his sweat, saying that he had so many skills. The passengers of the carriage, led by Edgar, rushed to attack the discouraged robbers, shouting that it was all over. Maine was about to run towards them when the two in the cart shouted at him to watch the man and not to go out because it was dangerous. Suddenly he heard the thief on the floor wondering why his comrades' lives had to end there, which made the boy freeze. The carriage with passengers arrived in the city of Lucas. Edgar spoke to a man who said that they were lucky that he was in the carriage. The man said that he would bring the man a reward, to which the man replied that it was not necessary since he had to go to work. He told the man to thank the others. Mr. Edgar noticed something. He said something about what it was and then asked Maine if he was okay, to which the boy replied yes. The boy asked Edgar what would happen to those people, to which the man replied that they would be sent to hard labor in a dungeon, where they would remain for the rest of their lives. Maine asked if they would really be like slaves, to which Edgar replied that this was the life they had chosen themselves. Maine was amazed. He said the words about life out loud, and thought that the skill was life itself. The boy remembered the man from the cart, muttering words about how the lives of his comrades should end here. Maine pursed his lips and wondered if he had really ended them. Mr. Edgar called out to the depressed young man, but he apologized and said he was tired and would go home. The man looked questioningly at Maine and remained where he was. The guy walked through the city past houses until he reached his own. He opened the door and crossed the threshold. Maine said with a smile that he was home. He looked around the room and called his mom and dad. The boy sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the family portrait. He turned to his father and said that he had received an incredible skill today. The boy asked if he could use it properly. He wondered how his father would do it. Maine leaned back and lay down, closing his eyes. He asked the question of what to do now. It was completely dark outside by this time. Morning came. Maine went into the forest. The guy exhaled and said something about how cold the morning was. He thought that at least it was fresh. He needed to practice his skills. Maine saw a forest rabbit from behind the bushes. He thought that he usually couldn't catch them, but he got the skill agility from the thieves, and he also decided to use speed. The guy got ready and immediately headed towards the rabbit, who looked at the guy in shock. The young man ran past the frozen rabbit, dagger in hand, knocking down his victim. He thought that skills were very cool. The rabbit was lying on the ground, and Maine exclaimed that it was easy, and now that the rabbit was caught, he used the skill cut. Now it has delicious meat and fluffy skin. The guy clenched his fists happily and said that he could use these skills to good effect when someone appeared behind him. Maine quickly hid behind a tree and looked back. An orc was standing nearby, and the guy said that meant they really do live here. The young man thought that killing orcs was a task for real adventurers, but not for people like him. He suddenly stopped and thought that he had changed. Maine looked at the orc to check the information. He was interested in the word above the skill killer's hand, the ability. He was surprised that he could even see this. Apparently, this is a replacement for human skills. The guy held out his hand, saying to cut 2 skills and insert them into himself, but nothing happened. It turns out that skills cannot be cut. However, the guy could definitely take the killer's hand. Now the poor orc was left without skills. Maine thought he could do it. He used speed low and rushed towards the orc. The monster turned towards the boy, who was surprised by its size. Maine thought he had hit it. However, the boy was already heading towards the orc, so he gritted his teeth and used the wind skill. The blow hit the orc, and the guy thought that it had taken off half his head. Would he be able to do the same with the body? He decided it could wait. Maine swung his blade and used the killer hand, delivering another powerful blow to the orc. Maine landed and shouted with joy because he had defeated the monster. He remembered to use the tenderloin. The guy said that even if the orc was alive, it was time to say goodbye to him. He used the skill cut. Maine got a big piece of meat. He was happy about the big carcass. This meant that the young man had defeated the orc. Maine said that with his cut and paste skills he could do anything. At this time, the knight came to the man and reported the report, to which he asked what happened, because the knight did not often just drop in. The knight said that a young man with an unusual skill had recently been spotted. The man curiously urged the knight on, to which the knight replied that it was evaluation maximum. The man was surprised and asked if it was the eye of God. He thought it was a man with such a rare skill and then asked the knight if he found it interesting. After having lunch, Main went to the city to sell the defeated orc. The guy came to some shop to see a man who looked with surprise at the goods the young man had brought. There was a big pile of meat in front of him, to which the man asked if the guy had really brought something useful. He couldn't believe it was an orc, and Main awkwardly asked how much the man would charge him. The man thought for a moment and replied that they usually pay 1 silver coin per kilogram. However, he said that today was a special day and he was very happy that the boy had grown up, for which the boy thanked his grandfather. The old man replied that instead of 1 silver coin, he would give the boy 23 gold coins. Mine was shocked and asked why so much and if it was normal. The boy, leaving the shop, told the old man that he would bring more meat later, which made the old man think that he would go bankrupt. Main came to another shop, greeting Mr. Renquinha. The man recognized the boy and told him to come. Mine explained that he had killed an orc while hunting, so he came to the village to sell it. The man asked in confusion if he had heard right, and then, seeing the contents of the boy's bag, he exclaimed in shock that these were orc lenses. He grabbed the goods and began to examine them, asking if they were magical orc stones. The man exclaimed that the boy did not even realize how important this thing was. Mr. Renquinha grabbed another item and asked if it was an orc egg. It was also a useful item. He offered the boy 1 gold coin and 32 pieces of silver, to which Main replied that he was rich. The man said that orc bones were also expensive, so he asked where they were. Main awkwardly replied that his bag couldn't hold 50 kilograms of bones, so he threw them away. Mr. Renquinha asked Main if he was in a hurry, then shouted toward the door for his bag. A quick reply came from there. A girl came out to them with a bag in her hands and wondered if he would like it. She called the boy Little Main, welcoming him to the shop. The boy was slightly embarrassed and wondered if this could be Renquinha's wife. The man said that this bag can easily carry up to 10 tons of stuff, and he gives it to Main. The guy, surprised, replied that it was cool, and the man continued, saying that he wanted Main to listen to something. Mr. Renquinha said he wanted the boy to kill 3 orcs. He did not specify a time limit. They were shocked. The girl asked the man what he was doing. Did he really want little Maina to be eaten? She exclaimed words about how the orc boys would torture him and the girls would cut him down, and their Main was still too young for that. Mr. Renquinha exclaimed for her to stop. The girl was told that the young man was able to defeat the orc, which surprised her. The man replied that he himself did not believe it at first, and then asked Main if he had really acquired excellent skills, while the girl was worried about the young man. Main wondered why they were so worried about him, even if he was only capable of killing orcs. The man explained that orc resources were in high demand and sold for a lot of money. If you asked some adventurer to kill an orc, you could lose a lot of money. Main replied that he understood. He took the gift in his hands and said that with such a beautiful bag, he would definitely bring the man 3 orcs. Mr. Renquinha told the boy not to overdo it, because to read more powerfully, you only have 1 life. Main agreed and wished them luck. The man looked at the table and said something about it being a potion. The guy took 2 of them. Main went on, and the girl shouted at him to come back alive, for which the guy thanked her. The guy went into the forest. As he walked, he had a conversation with himself about how he was told not to overdo it, but with such a good bag, he wanted to live up to expectations. Main was walking through the forest and thinking about the orc bones he had thrown away somewhere nearby, when he suddenly saw something. A forest sheep was standing in front of him. He was walking so fast that he didn't even notice it. The young man hid behind a tree and thought that her wool was probably worth a lot. Main looked at the forest sheep using the skill Appraisal Maximum. He saw Auxiliary Magic Sleep and Alchemy, so he decided that he should get both skills, stretching his hand to the side. He leaned his free hand against the tree and thought that the hunt would be just right, when suddenly he noticed the tree. He exclaimed questioningly and pulled his hand that was stuck to the tree. At the same time, the forest sheep turned its attention to him and quickly ran away. Main quickly used the skill Cut to free himself and cursed. The boy looked up and saw a huge caterpillar web that surrounded him on all sides. Main saw a caterpillar sitting on a web and eating bones, which made him angry. He thought, well, that's how it is, this is its nest. The guy decided to get rid of it. Main used the skills Speed, Small, and Strength. Jumping on the trees, he headed straight for the caterpillar, shouting words that it was the end. However, before he could reach her, he collapsed to the ground, exhausted. He could not understand why his body was so heavy. At that moment, the caterpillar swung and hit the ground where the guy was, causing him to fly off to the side with a scream. Mine flew into the tree and coughed, trying to figure out what it was. He quickly used the skill Appraisal on the caterpillar and saw the skill Auxiliary Magic Low Speed, which surprised him. The wounded guy sitting under a tree quickly used the skill Cut. His head was cracking at the seams. Suddenly next to him was a huge foot. The guy was shocked because several orcs appeared in front of him. He thought it was very timely. Main noticed that there were 3 of them. He carefully looked through the information about them. The orcs had no skills or abilities, they were just weaklings. The boy exclaimed that he needed to prepare, so he quickly used low speed, thereby slowing down the orcs. He was glad that it worked. The boy thought that he needed strength to deal with 3 orcs. Mine suddenly remembered that he had Auxiliary Magic Sleep. He immediately used this skill, after which the 2 orcs fell to the ground, but the situation was still not the best. Mine prepared himself and began to use the skills Vision Enhancement Medium, Prayer Strong, Strength, Acceleration, Strengthen Legs Small, one after another. He clearly decided that after this, he would definitely deal with the monsters. The youth rushed to attack. After a quick strike, 1 monster was defeated. Mine immediately used wind magic, defeating the second orc, and then struck the sleeping orc, defeating him as well. The guy defeated all the orcs, and pain immediately pierced him, but he had to go for the bones. The boy suddenly remembered the potion that Mr. Reincarnation had given him. He took it out and used it, and indeed, the pain disappeared. Mine wondered if Mr. Reincarnation had created the recovery potion, since it was a very useful item. The boy said that alchemy was a skill he had received from a sheep. Main looked at his information and noticed that his skills were not listed in full, but turned into and so on. The young man looked at the long list and thought that it would be difficult for him with so many skills. Mine looked at the information about himself and thought that he couldn't tell other people about his skills because he stole them. He didn't want to steal people's lives anymore. The boy looked up and decided that he needed to learn to live independently, and this would be his first adventure. Mine is back in the capital in the city of Augustine. Even though it was his second time in the capital, the boy was amazed by how many people there were. When Mine was here for the first time, he only went to the main temple. There the young man got his Eye of God and cut paste. With these skills, the boy's life became much easier, and when he started to combine them, he got irreversible consequences. The boy stole someone else's skills. Mine didn't even think about ruining other people's lives. He didn't want to do anything bad. The guy was even ready to swear. Suddenly, the young man turned his attention to the Adventurers Guild. Mine walked up to the door and apologized hesitantly, walking inside and looking around. That's how he got into the Adventurers Guild. Mine looked ahead with admiration and wondered if all these people were adventurers. He said that everyone was so strong. The guy even recognized those who were with him in the carriage. The guy wanted to see at least one familiar face while the people around him were talking about different things to do, or about the fact that there were orcs in Lucas. Maine saw a large stand ahead and suggested that maybe he could join a guild there. The young man approached one of the girls and, introducing himself, said that he wanted to become an adventurer, and then he asked if he could sign up here, to which the girl looked at him in bewilderment. Everyone in the guild immediately turned their attention to them and started talking about the guy approaching Aisha. Some were wondering what kind of kid he was and what he was doing. One of the guys turned to the other, calling him Ryle, so that he would look at the boy, to which he replied that Aisha does not associate with such people. Mine awkwardly apologized and said something about how it seemed like adventurers weren't made here. Aphisha awkwardly yelled at the guy to wait. She said everything was fine. The guy apologized again and then asked if she had seen the faces of those guys, to which she replied yes. Aisha explained that many adventurers were talking nonsense. They were just surprised by the guy's politeness. To this, Mine replied that he saw, while others looked at him menacingly. The girl told Maine to just sit here. She would register him and then explain everything to the adventurers. The guy agreed. When the guy was about to sit down, a huge guy suddenly came up to him from behind and asked him to wait. He told Maine to prove that he was an adventurer. Aisha shouted at Held that she would not forgive him for this, to which he replied that he would simply show the guy reality. Held grabbed Maine by the collar and said that the guy must be an experienced killer to be in this place, to which the guy replied that he had never heard of such a thing. Held grabbed the boy tighter and lifted him off the ground, asking what he had just said, cursing all the while. Aisha screamed for Held to stop when suddenly a man came out of one of the rooms and asked what all the fuss was about on the first floor. At that moment, Held was holding the young man by the collar, and the man asked if the boy was fooling around again. Held let go of Main, throwing him back onto the floor. He smiled and said the words about the boy being too weak. Main frowned and looked at Held, thinking that he should do something. However, he froze, looking at the guy in front of him, who asked with a smirk if the guy was resisting. Held swung his arm quickly and powerfully to strike, screaming about how fed up he was. Main thought it was painful, so he had to do something. Suddenly, Aisha appeared behind the boy, shouting the boy's name while grabbing him from behind. Main looked at her in shock and wondered why she was doing this. Main turned around to see Held's flying fist and thought about Aisha. The youth, using the strength skill, thought that it was not very fair. The boy noticed that the youth did something. However, he hit Main right in the body, causing the guy to be thrown back and cough. The man watching the incident was shocked, as the guy was able to protect Aisha. Main was lying on the floor and Aisha was standing next to him, screaming his name. The boy really tried. Aisha continued calling Main, and Held pointed at him and said that this is what losers look like. The man came out and asked the adventurer what was going on. Held turned around and asked who dared to interrupt him, and then immediately tensed up. The adventurer saw a man behind him who looked at him seriously and then asked if he could be more polite. Held hesitated at this. The man said he wanted an explanation. Held replied that the recruit had asked him, as an older comrade, to train him. Aisha shouted out the words that it was a lie. She wanted to explain everything, but the knight next to her said that they would talk to her later, so the girl fell silent. The man frowned and looked at the other adventurers, who were immediately taken aback. The man said he wanted to hear the witnesses. He asked if Held's words were true, ordering them to answer. The guy replied that Held had hit a defenseless guy, and the girl next to him added that they hadn't had time to intervene and apologized. Held shouted at them that they wouldn't get away with this. The man turned to Aisha and asked her to explain to him what it was like to be a member of the guild. The girl replied that if you broke the laws of the state, their guild is a trusted organization. They are equal before the law, so as a fine they will ask for 10 platinum coins from a person and they can expel him. The man looked at Main and said that the boy should not worry, everything will be fine, because he protected the girl. He thought that such people would not be a problem for them. Aisha called the boys and asked them to take the young man to the medical room. The girl who came up quickly accepted the request. Aisha stood up and hurried them. The man turned to Held, telling him that he had only 2 options: pay 10 platinums, or the man would cut off his hand right then and there. He told the adventurer to choose. Held was slightly taken aback, then swung his weapon and shouted that none of that. The man accepted the answer, and Held said that he had done nothing wrong. He grabbed the weapon and shouted, attacking the man, that he was innocent. The adventurers around were shocked. They thought Held had gone crazy, so they decided it was time to run away. At this time, Held was furious, and the adventurers stopped. The man asked what Held was talking about. The adventurer stood there without arms, and the man asked who would pay for the repairs then. Held was shocked. The man turned around and said that because of the boy, all his beautiful parquet was ruined. He hoped that there would be someone who could help him with the repairs. Held is a D-class adventurer. He is quite strong. However, he lacks self-control. The man thought about Main, who was lying unconscious. He decided that the guy was not a bad guy. Main opened his eyes and mumbled something. He looked at the ceiling and asked where he was. Aisha appeared before his eyes and asked if the boy was awake. The young man recognized the girl. He jumped up, called her and asked if she was okay and if she was hurt. Aisha asked in surprise if he was talking about her. Suddenly, the guy's body was pierced by pain. He said that something was wrong with his body. The girl answered that he needed to rest, and the guy asked what was wrong with him and why he had wounds. The man appeared at the door and replied that the boy had almost died. He said that it was very difficult to protect someone from Held's blows. Aisha saw the man and called out, calling him the guild leader, which surprised the boy. The man explained that Aisha's magic had saved him this time, but if he wanted to become an adventurer in the future, he should be more careful. The leader asked if the boy still wanted to be an adventurer. Main responded by saying that of course it was a big risk. The young man thought that his parents wanted him to become one, and everyone in the village wanted it too. Also, the guy didn't get his skills for nothing. Mine confidently answered that he wanted to for everyone. He always dreamed of becoming an adventurer. He thought that he would be just like the hero Alexandrite. Aisha looked at him softly. The girl turned to the chief and asked him to give Maine his map. The guy asked about the map, confused. The man picked up the card in his hand and threw it towards the young man, who was very surprised. The man explained that it was an ID card, a guild card that had to be shown to receive rewards. The card indicated that Aisha was an escort. The leader replied that he had decided to give Maine a personal escort as an apology for Held. He also thought that Aisha was perfect for him. Mine looked at Aisha, processing the information. The girl smiled and said that they would work together. The man said that she should give the boy a job when he wanted, support him when he needed it, feed him when he asked, fulfill all his wishes. The girl awkwardly shouted that the leader was incorrigible. The man said that Aisha was the best escort in the guild, so everyone would envy him. The girl smiled and said that Maine was lucky. She thought that newcomers rarely came in lately, so at least there would be someone new. Mine joined the guild and became an adventurer, but now he is injured and asks Ryle to stop. The guy shouted that if he does not help the man on the ground, he will die, and he is Ryle's comrade. The boy in front of Maine replied that it was the boy's fault and that it was all because of him. Ryle said that his enemy was right in front of him and he would kill him. A little earlier, not much time had passed since Mine joined the guild. The other adventurers were discussing that Mine was now an F-class adventurer. The young man turned to Aisha and asked how he could increase this class. The girl replied that he needed to complete quests and earn guild points. Mine looked at her and asked if there were any tasks for F-class. If there were, he wanted to complete them as soon as possible. Aisha replied that she would look at them now and then added that wealth and fame also increased with level. The boy looked at the ID and said that his parents were no longer alive, but for the sake of the villagers who always believed in him, he would try. Aisha was surprised at first, but then moved. The girl suddenly lowered her head and asked Maine for forgiveness, which greatly surprised the young man in front of her. Aisha said she didn't know about the guy's parents. She tried to explain, but the guy said everything was fine and he understood. Maine replied that he was sure that his parents would continue to believe in him, and that gave him confidence. The girl looked at the boy, saying his name. Aisha called out to Maina and said that she also believed in him. She told the boy to never give up, for which the young man thanked the girl. Aisha informed the adventurer that only 3 tasks were available to him. Mine asked again, and the girl replied that the main one was killing a slime. Aisha said that Lunahun was attacked by bandits last month. They stole the slug oil and started a fire. The slug oil is used as fuel for fireplaces. Llama and Lunahun still has no power. Mine quickly asked if the townspeople were hurt, to which Aisha smiled and replied that their guild members had helped and no one had been hurt. The boy exhaled and replied that that was wonderful. Aisha continued to explain that the reward for killing a slime was small, but the guild points for its oil could be quite large. The girl said that it was imperative to complete this task for the people of Lunahun. Mine saw that the other 2 tasks were killing a goblin and delivering it. Aisha asked the boy if he knew the habitat of the slime. She said that there was a lime pond north of Luca's forest. Liqueur made from the fruit growing on the trees near the shore was the village's specialty, and the goblin loved the lime fruit. She said that the goblin sometimes went there. Aisha also added that medicinal herbs grow under the lime trees. Maine concluded that all 3 tasks were in one place. He was very lucky. The boy told Aisha that in that case he would take everything at once. The girl replied that she hoped that collecting the herbs would not be so difficult, to which the boy agreed. Another girl from the guild approached Aisha and said that Mine was a good guy. Aisha agreed, and then she slumped, thinking about the guy's parents and what she said. Suddenly, Ryle called out to the girl and asked why Aisha was being nice to this little guy, to which Aisha replied that Ryle should show respect and treat her properly. The guy slapped the counter and asked for what reason, since he was a B-class adventurer. The guy asked what Held had done to deserve this. Ryle frowned and shouted that he always tried so hard for the girl. The other adventurers took notice and said that the guy had gone too far. Aisha hadn't done anything. The girl apologized. Aisha sheepishly explained to the boy that she saw something in Maine that other people didn't have, and then asked if he understood. The boy was furious. Ryle kicked a nearby table with all his might and cursed. Aisha stood there in shock, and the people at the table began to curse because the guy had spilled their drinks. Ryle said that he must have wasted his life. He told Aisha that he didn't understand anything. The guy was angry. He decided to get rid of the boy. At this time, Main was talking to a man who asked if the boy liked him. The boy, holding the weapon in his hands, asked if it was a special dagger. Maina was interested in the number after the man's name. The man replied that it was probably a sword in which the blacksmith's light was expressed. The guy asked what it meant, to which he was told that sometimes, when a blacksmith forges armor, this light appears, a sign of the weapon's great power. The man said that the sword had a lot of glow. Mine said that he would buy it, and the man asked if it was too good for simple hunting. He asked if he could also buy the skin of a black wolf. Mine replied that it was time to go after the slime and the goblin. The man was surprised, and the boy told him not to worry because the young man would cope since he had already defeated 4 orcs. He thanked the man and left. The man was surprised. He said that Renquinha's stories were true. He could not believe in 4 orcs and hoped that everything would be fine. Main went into the forest and was almost there. He walked along the path and remembered how he was here with his parents. The guy went on. She saw a lime pond which was very beautiful. Main looked around. There were lime trees growing near the pond. Aisha said that medicinal herbs were growing right under them. The young man pulled out some grass to take for himself, as various decoctions are prepared from them. Mine found a nice spot with grass while someone was watching him. The boy noticed something and looked around. He thought there was someone, so he used vision enhancement medium. Mine saw a lot of monsters around. They were goblins and slimes. He asked why now. At that moment, the slugs rushed to attack, and the guy realized that the goblins were controlling them. Mine quickly began to deal with the slimes heading towards the goblins. He used speed, but at that moment the goblins disappeared somewhere. The boy looked back as they suddenly appeared from the ground. The young man quickly jumped back and looked at the goblins again. The monsters disappeared again and then attacked from above, catching the guy off guard. One goblin hit the guy on the head. Mine thought that these guys were pretty strong, but he was already tired of them. The young man quickly defeated one. While he was being attacked, he thought that perhaps they had the skill of speed. Mine used the skill cut. The inscription disappeared, but where is it? The boy saw another goblin giving orders to the slimes. He tried to figure out how he was commanding them. The boy saw that there was a slug ability next to the slime, but he didn't know what it was, and he also saw the goblin's skills. It was an outrageous skill. He decided that he needed to take away the goblin's taming ability. He used the skill and the slugs began to move aside. The guy suddenly came up with something. Mine extended his hand and used tame. All the slimes suddenly froze and looked at the guy who was still using tame. Mine looked at the frozen slugs and assumed that they were now on his side. He said that he had the advantage in numbers. After this, the guy gave the order for the slugs to attack, and they all immediately rushed forward. A bunch of slimes surrounded the confused goblins, and the guy quickly began to deal with them all. He hoped that they had lost their skills. After some time, all the goblins were defeated. Mine did not know that it turns out that demons can be made friends. The boy turned to the slugs and thanked them, saying that he couldn't have done it without them. He needed the slug oil, but killing them was somehow sad. Suddenly, all the slugs melted, leaving behind only oil. The guy assumed that he would no longer be able to use taming. He collected all the oil and said that was all. Mine leaned against the cube of slime oil and apologized, then thanked them all. The boy returned to the city where it was already getting dark. He needed to quickly take the loot to Aisha. The young man wondered if there was anyone else there. Mine was about to enter the guild when someone called out to him, and the guy wondered what he wanted from him. Ryle stood in front of Maine with a few adventurers behind him. He told the boy that he had something to talk about, so the boy should come to him. Maine was curious as to why the boys had called him. He looked back and asked what alley it was, to which Ryle promised that they would finish quickly. Ryle frowned as he looked at the boy and said that he was just going to get rid of the boy. Mine looked at the boy with confusion. One of the adventurers shouted at Ryle that this was not what they had agreed upon. He said that they had been informed that this could result in being kicked out of the guild. Another adventurer added, telling Ryle not to be stupid, because no matter how you look at it, this was murder. He asked if the guy really wanted to make them criminals. Suddenly, a foreign fist appeared in front of this adventurer's face. Ryle threatened Ammon to shut up because they could get rid of him too. Ammon said he wasn't joking and then asked Ryle if he was crazy. Mine wondered what the guy was doing and what that light was. The adventurers shouted at Ryle to stop. Mine immediately used assessment. The young adventurer realized that the guy was pointing a gun at his own friend. Maine asked Ryle to stop because the guy would do whatever they said. The guy smirked when he heard these words, and the other guys shouted for Maine to run because Ryle would just finish him off. Ammon yelled at Maine to get out of there when he was suddenly hit by Ryle. The boy told the wounded man to get out of the way and then asked what the others were waiting for. Mine rushed towards the adventurer, shouting for him to stop attacking as he did so. Ryle was surprised by the wind magic, and the boy thought that even if he missed, it would slow down Ryle, who couldn't see anything. Mine ran up to Ammon and asked if he was okay, saying that he would give him a healing potion now. The guy took out the potion, but at that moment the container with the potion broke in his hand, and a hole appeared in his hand. Ryle stood nearby, asking the guy if he really decided to blind him. Mine looked at his hand and thought how much it hurt. He hurried to use the regeneration skill he had. At that moment, Ryle attacked Ammon, who had a hole in his stomach. Mine ran towards the adventurer, shouting his name, but another attack was reflected in front of his feet. Ryle asked if the boy had forgotten that he was going to be killed. Mine wondered why the boy was attacking. He was blinded. He couldn't dodge. Ryle stood in front of the guy, ready to attack. All right. He said that the guy didn't even know how much experience he had, so he couldn't be outwitted that easily. The adventurers quickly ran away, shouting that it was time for them to leave this place. They told Ryle that they would report him to the boss. Ryle called them traitors and said that he would kill them. However, now he was looking straight at Maine, who was covering them with his body. The young man asked Ryle to stop, because if he didn't help Lord Ammon, he would die and he was his comrade. Ryle frowned and replied that he would finish off Ammon along with the guy, but would deal with Maine first, because if he didn't do it, the traitors would run after the leader in vain. Mine stood there and thought about whether helping people was not the main task of adventurers, so why did the guy want to take their lives? He thought that if all adventurers were like this, then he felt sorry for them. The young adventurer thought of Alexandrite, who came with a holy sword in his hands, the knight adventurer who protected them all. Ryle prepared to attack the guy and asked if he had already resigned himself to death. Maine thought about saving lives if his skills could help people. Ryle was confused while Mine was standing there thinking because his hand bullet skill wasn't working. He grabbed his hand to check. Now his skills were with Ryle. He thought that now his skills would not harm people, looking at his palm with Ryle's skills. Maine told Ryle to just calm down. He said there was no need to hurt anyone anymore. Ryle was confused at first, then cursed at the guy and asked what he had done to him. The adventurer rushed towards the boy, asking what he had done to him. He swung his arm to strike, and at that moment Mine used the presence erasure skill, surprising the boy. Ryle stopped and looked around, shouting that the boy was missing. He was asking where the boy had gone. He hadn't seen him. Suddenly he noticed that Maine was sitting nearby next to Ammon and asking if everything was okay. Ammon thanked the guy for helping him. Ryle asked furiously when the boy had managed to do this, and Maine rose to his feet. Ammon asked the boy to leave, to which he replied that everything was fine. Mine looked at the boy on the ground and asked him to leave. Ammon looked at the boy in shock and apologized and started to leave the alley while Ryle shouted after him, asking where he was going. Ryle tried to use the skill out of habit, but it didn't work and he clicked his tongue. Mine suddenly appeared behind him and said that it was time to end it. The young man told Ryle that he should know the value of other people's lives. Ryle turned around, trying to hit Mine, but he disappeared again, causing the boy to curse. He began to swing his fists in different directions, asking where Mine was. Ryle shouted for the boy to show himself, asking what kind of adventurer he was then. Ryle said irritably that the guy was making him wait. He suddenly swung his weapon forward, noticing Mine, but missed again. He wondered if he couldn't kill him. He was a C-class adventurer after all. Suddenly, Aisha appeared in the alley, calling out for Maine, and the guild leader asked if the boy was safe. Ryle looked at Aisha and the guild master in confusion. He couldn't believe that those guys actually followed them. Ryle lowered his head and told Mine that he knew the value of life because his life had always been dedicated to Aisha. However, she never understood it. Ryle suddenly became much more serious. He said that he would get his life, his skills, and Aisha too. His words surprised the young man. Ryle grabbed a small blade and rushed towards the approaching girl, shouting that he would get it and also kill the girl. Mine tried to stop the boy. He used the skill insert on Ryle, but he continued to run. The young man could not understand why he was not succeeding. He shouted for Ryle to stop, but he was already about to strike the girl, who was looking at the blade in confusion, and the leader only managed to call out to the girl. Suddenly Mine appeared in front of Aisha. He blocked Ryle's attack, causing his blade to fly off to the side, and the guy himself could not understand what it was. Mine swung his attack using the skills Close Combat Maximum and Body Enhancement. The youth delivered a powerful blow straight at Ryle, sending him flying backwards. Mine was breathing heavily, and the guild leader looked at him seriously. Aisha grabbed the guy's hand and asked what was wrong. The guy tried to answer something incoherently, and the girl told him to wait a little because she would cure everything now. The girl looked at Mane carefully and asked how he was, apologizing. The guy replied that he was already better and then thanked him for his help. At this point, the guild leader spoke up, saying that he was going to help them anyway, but they had already managed. The man said that, unfortunately, fighting was forbidden in their guild. He added that since Ryle's group members had told him everything, the man would forgive Ryle this time. The guild leader added that he had one question. He spoke of the legs that covered such a distance in an instant, the strength that defeated Ryle, and martial arts. The man said that this was an order from the guild leader. He demanded that Mine explain how he had obtained these powers. The girl in armor approached her father and asked if it was true that the guy had killed 4. The man confirmed his daughter's words, and the knight next to her added that the guy had incredible evaluate max and cut-paste skills. Rumors of Mine's strength spread throughout the world. The girl could not believe the guy's strength. The man asked why he didn't talk to the officer about the boy who had the eye of God. He wanted to meet the boy face to face. The girl asked her father why he needed it and why he shouldn't let her do it since she could find the guy herself. The man agreed, saying it was worth a try. In the Adventurers Guild, the guys asked the leader if everything went well and if Mine was safe. The man noticed the girl's gaze and asked why she was looking so pitifully. She replied that she was offended. Could the man not see it? The girl assumed that Aisha was probably angry too. The girl started talking about how Mine had defeated Ryle, the strongest in Class C, and that he could be useful to them. She said that Mine was very dear to Aisha, that he had even managed to kill the orcs, and that the leader should be afraid of him. The girl called the man reckless and then asked him to get off the table. Aisha called him a real fool. The girl exclaimed that this was an empty talk because Mane had already been expelled. They should just forget about it. Aisha saw the man who had come. The girl in the cape came up and told Aisha that she wanted to ask about the guy who was expelled today. Aisha apologized and said that they were not allowed to tell anything to outsiders. Aisha looked closely at the girl when suddenly she recognized Princess Sylphide. She asked her why she came, to which the princess asked the girl to be quieter because someone might hear. Aisha said that a little earlier in that alley, Ryle was punished and Mane was given 16 gold coins. The young man himself apologized to the leader since he had not told anything. The guild leader asked if the boy had violated his order. Aisha then shouted at the leader that revealing one's skills was a personal matter. She asked if the man had gone mad, to which he replied that his orders to the guild were the law. The man said he didn't usually give orders like that. However, he listed the boy's skills, which were far more than 3, which caught the boy off guard. The chief also added that when the boy protected Aisha from Ryle, he did something. The man said that they only received 3 skills from God, and then asked if Mane wanted to tell him something. The guy apologized to the chief, and replied that he had nothing to say to the man. The leader said that if that was the case, the boy could no longer be in their guild. Mine accepted this outcome, causing Ayla to exclaim that he should not leave. She asked how the boy would be alone. Mane was silent for a moment, and then thanked the girl with a smile and said that he could handle it alone. Sylphide thanked Aisha for the information. As she understood, the guy was expelled. The princess said that it was stupid, and then asked the chief if there were many adventurers pestering Mane, to which the man replied in the affirmative. The princess turned around and asked where they got so much slime oil from. Aisha replied that Mine had gotten it for them near Lunahun. It was his first mission. The princess took the cube and said that it was amazing and she couldn't believe her eyes. Sylphide told Mr. Bazamp to look up because the main thing was that they had helped the princess a lot. Sylphide was wondering where the boy was now. She needed to find out somehow. The princess asked Aisha if she knew where Mine lived because she urgently needed to meet him. Chief Bazem said that he could deliver the girl to Lucas as a gift. However, Aisha said that it was not worth it. It would be better for the man to look after the guild because it must serve the state faithfully and truly. Aisha asked the princess to go with her. She wanted to see the guy again to apologize. Sylphide answered Aisha that of course she could go. The princess said that they could go together because Aisha was quite strong, so she could serve as a reliable guard and help. Aisha thanked the princess. They went to the city of Lucas, where they met Mr. Edgar. The man, seeing Aisha, asked if they needed help, to which the girl replied that everything was fine. They just decided to visit Maine. Edgar replied that the guy had long gone into the forest, worried about something. The young man said that the village hunters had seen orcs in the forest and went there alone. Edgar said that he would go with him, but who would replace him at work? An awkward situation ensued. Aisha said that they were going to the forest to find out what was going on there. Edgar asked who the man was with Aisha, since he couldn't let illegals through. Sylphide took off her hood and asked if he could show her the pass, to which the man exclaimed that there were no questions. Edgar bowed to the princess and repeated that there were orcs in the forest. He offered to accompany the princess. The girl replied that it was not necessary. Aisha said that in the worst case she could protect the princess, so it was better for the man to stay. Sylphide said that Edgar would be much more useful to the townspeople, because the orcs could attack the city directly. She added that their city needed brave defenders like him, so she was sure that he would serve his country well. The princess said that this city was under the protection of Edgar Marcel. The man bowed and asked the girls to help this boy. The princess gave her word, and then they set off on their journey. Maine ran through the forest, using his skills and fighting the orcs. He killed 5, but he heard others nearby. Maine heard a sound. The boy walked around the tree and saw a tied-up girl who was unconscious. Maine found the orc village. There were many human bones underfoot. The guy wondered how many people had died here. Maine saw that the girl had been caught by orcs and needed urgent help. However, his opponent was not an easy one, and although Maine had gained so many skills, he did not know if he could handle it this time. Suddenly, the orc tried to grab the girl, but only tore her clothes, causing her to scream. Maine noticed this and immediately rushed to attack, cutting off the orc's arm. He thought that everything was no longer important. He simply had to cope. He stood among the orcs and shouted that he would deal with them right here with his own hands. There were 6 strong orcs in front of Maine. He needed to attack them to save the girl. The guy started to evaluate all the orcs. He was surprised and thought that this was some kind of mistake. Maine stood in front of the level 14 orc and couldn't understand why the level was so high. The boy was completely confused. He couldn't understand what was happening. The orc at that moment grabbed a stick to attack. The demon tried to strike the boy, but he turned away with a scream. The orc struck again, but Maine jumped over his hand, causing him to strike another orc. The guy thought he needed to use something. He used the skill Insert and Sleep, which caused the orc in front of him to instantly fall asleep. These were quite effective skills. Maine began to attack the other orcs one by one. He decided to use the skill Martial Arts Continuous Attack to attack everyone at once. All the monsters were defeated by the guy, who suddenly noticed something. He tried to understand what was happening. His strength began to grow, as did his level. Maine was very surprised as his level suddenly increased from 13 to 20. The numbers showed the skill level. The level of assessment increased. Now it was already at the 2nd level. The guy thought that later first he had to help this girl. He hoped that she was okay. Maine headed towards the girl, but suddenly a stream of power hit him. It was wind magic, and the guy's entire body began to be carried away. He immediately used resistance and magic regeneration. Maine saw a bunch of orcs and couldn't understand where so many of them came from, and his strength was almost exhausted. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in front of the boy. It was the orc general. The young man began to regret that he had gone into the forest alone. In front of him stood the orc general, the orc king, the king's servants. The whole kingdom was assembled. The guy wondered where the orc general came from in this forest. Maine looked at them in confusion and couldn't understand where they were from, but the worst thing was that they were all together. Princess Sylphide and Aisha were walking through the forest and noticed a strange wind. Aisha told the princess that Maine had already met orcs in this forest. Sylphide heard that the boy had killed 4. The girls discussed where the orcs could have come from in this forest because it was almost impossible. Aisha said that the orc lands were far from this forest. She said that if you connect the lands where the orcs live and the capital, Lucas will be in the middle. Sylph immediately realized that the orcs were heading to the capital. She asked Aisha why she hadn't told the princess about it right away. The girl replied that it was just her guess. The princess said that if it was true, then there might be an orc king in that forest. Suddenly, the girls heard a loud noise from the forest. They tried to figure out where the sound was coming from. Aisha started to run, shouting Mayna's name. The princess ran after the girl. Part of the forest was on fire, and in the center lay a guy who had been attacked. He had not expected fire magic at all. He urgently needed to recover. The boy stood up and noticed that it seemed like high-class orcs were protecting the general. Mine decided to take away his skills and kill them all. He used his two-handed sword skill, aiming at the orcs. He finally found the right moment, but he was immediately attacked, causing the guy to fly back. Mine thought that he would not have time to use recovery. He thought that this was the end. At that moment, Maine heard his name being called and asked to hold on. He opened his eyes slightly. The orcs began to attack quickly. Maine watched in shock as they were defeated one by Aisha. The girl called out to the boy and shouted for him to turn around. The boy turned around and saw an orc rushing towards the boy. He had almost no strength left when suddenly the princess appeared and defeated the orc with a light blow of her sword. The girl looked at the guy with a smile and said that apparently she and Aisha came just in time. She asked if the guy was okay. Maine answered in the affirmative, confused, and tried to understand who was standing in front of him. Aisha ran up to the boy asking if he had gone crazy because he couldn't go into the forest alone. The boy thanked her and then asked why they were in this place. He realized that the princess was there. Sylphide shouted to Aisha to heal his wounds quickly because they needed to leave this place. Suddenly, the orc general appeared. The princess shouted to Aisha that there were 3 of them here. Aisha, helping the boy to stand up, said that the generals were here. The princess added that the orc king was also somewhere in the forest. The orc general prepared to attack the humans, so Sylphide ordered the boys not to approach so that she could deal with them herself. Suddenly, the orc's attack stopped, which made the princess confused, and the boy, getting up, said that he was already fine. Maine asked if the girls had even seen these generals. He thought that they didn't need to do anything, they should take care of themselves. Sylph turned back to the orcs, who were confused. Mine told them that he had already recovered. He told the girls to go back to the city. The princess grabbed his hand and asked if the guy had even listened to her. He wasn't the one killing 4 ordinary orcs. The young man frowned slightly and replied that he understood. However, he wanted to cope alone. He wanted to prove to himself that he could. The princess said that there was no need to prove anything to yourself, and Aisha added that you could die like that. She said that the guys could only cope together. Suddenly, they heard someone talking about how tasty humans were. They tried to figure out where the voice was coming from and who was speaking. It turned out that the orcs were deciding who to eat first. Suddenly, a huge orc appeared in front of the guys. Maine didn't even understand where it came from. It was the great lord of the orcs. Maine looked at him, not understanding anything. After all, the king himself stood before them. The boy stood in front of the orc king, trying to figure out how he got there. He saw the monster swinging its arm to attack, so he quickly grabbed the girls, shouting at them to watch out. They barely had time to run away when the king hit the ground. The girls screamed. Mayna was thrown aside and coughed. They were thrown back so hard, even though they hadn't been hit. The boy was shocked by the terrifying power. Mine thought that as long as the king was so strong, fighting him would be a self-sacrifice. But if he could strip the orc of his skills and weaken him, he could win. Suddenly, the orc king disappeared, and a moment later the girls screamed, causing Maine to turn around. The girls were captured by the orcs, and the guy, calling out to them, tried to understand where the king was, in front or behind. Sylph screamed that the king must not be allowed to join the army. Mine rushed to their aid when he was suddenly hit by a huge fist. The king appeared in front of the boy and attacked, causing him to fly back. The girls screamed his name as the orcs began to lick them and asked him to save them. The young man used a great healing. He barely stopped, cursed and coughed. The monster was too powerful and fast, so the healing did not have time to work. Aisha shouted the boy's name, warning him of danger behind him. The orc king stood behind the boy. He raised his hand to attack and asked if the boy was still resisting. He suggested that he try something. Maine couldn't understand how this giant could paint himself so silently from behind. The boy's attacks had almost no effect, and the orc simply dodged his skills. Suddenly, the king used the disappearance, and then a weapon appeared in his hands with which he began to attack the guy. Mine was in a stupor. The orc king struck a powerful blow directly on the ground where the boy was standing. The girls screamed his name, and a shock wave passed through the ground. Animals began to run away from the forest because of it, and Edgar in the city thought it was an earthquake. The earth shook, and the man was shocked and thought that some kind of monster had woken up in the forest. The king's weapon pierced the ground, but the boy was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, everyone noticed something. Aisha tried to call out to the guy when they saw that the guy was holding the blade of a weapon. He pushed the king's weapon away with his blade. The orc asked if the boy really thought he would survive if he could finally block his blow. Main's steel knife shattered. The boy thought that even though it was broken now, it was not in vain. After all, it was able to parry the blow of the orc king. Mine took away the orc skills of king intimidation, materialization, and special magic of space and time. The king was at a loss because the king's axe had disappeared. Main, using his skills, ordered the orcs to release the girls immediately. He used king's intimidation on the generals, who immediately released the girls, and the king asked what the boy was doing. Aisha asked Main how he did it. The guy shouted for the girl to leave here because now he will attack with full force. Princess Sylph looked at him in shock and wondered if he was still holding back. The orc king shouted that he would then attack without limiting his power. Suddenly, Mine used all-encompassing magic, fire. The princess turned around in shock, and the boy shouted for them to quickly get out. The princess grabbed Aisha by the hand and told her to run because of them, the boy had to hold back his strength. Mine used all-encompassing magic, hurricane. That was not all, he used all-encompassing magic, wave. Sylphide turned around and wondered how many more blows he could take. The guy used all-encompassing magic, earth. Large rocks emerged from the ground and struck the orcs. The girls said the guy was cool. Main caught his breath a little and wondered if he had really succeeded. But suddenly the rock split, and the orc king shouted to the youth to prepare to be pierced, and then rushed to attack. Main took out his second dagger and prepared to attack. It was hard for him. The orc king and the boy clashed in an attack. The orc couldn't break through, and the boy shouted that it was useless. Mine made a strike. Now both his knives were broken. He had almost no mana left, and his weapon was broken. The guy would have to go hand to hand. He suddenly remembered the materialization skill and thought that he still had a weapon. The boy had dreamed of this blade since childhood. Now he just had to close his eyes and clearly imagine it. The king noticed this and said that the guy was now defenseless, so he would finish the guy off with his own hands on that very spot. The girls saw this and shouted that things were bad and Main needed help. Suddenly, a strange light surrounded the boy. Aisha noticed that the boy's right hand was glowing. As a child, Main's father often told him stories. Among them, there was one that became his favorite. The orc understood something when he saw this light. The story was about the hero Alexandrite and his sword, which the boy always dreamed of taking into his hands. The king cursed because he realized that this was his skill. Mine stretched out his hand and shouted for the weapon to appear. The holy sword of the heavens appeared in his hands. When Main was little, he saw the hero Alexandrite in a picture book holding a sacred sword, Tuvering. He didn't know if he really existed. However, as strange as it may sound, it was he who was in his hands now. Aisha looked at the guy in shock. She wondered if the hero really existed. Mine looked at the sword in shock. Tuvering was absorbing his power. The orc king asked why a guy like him had such an ability. Aisha wanted to rush towards the guy, but Sylph grabbed the girl, stopping her. The princess said that the king was now completely focused on Maina. Their intervention would be useless. Mine gritted his teeth and thought that if he couldn't win quickly, the sword would absorb all his strength. The boy rushed to attack. His blow severed the orc's arm. The young man was shocked by how easily Tuvering cut through the orc king's tough skin. It was incredible. The king shouted at the man that it was not over yet, and Main quickly used wind magic. He swung for another blow. With a quick movement, the youth struck the orc king's other arm, and then used his leg enhancement to jump up. Main fought the orc king, but Tuvering's blows were no longer as strong. The orc said that it seemed that such a small body simply could not use this power to its maximum. The orc king quickly hit the boy and told him to know his limits. Mine was lying on the ground, and the king laughed, calling the young man a weakling, when suddenly he noticed something. He turned around and saw some light. It turned out that there were girls behind him. The princess was shouting at Aisha to heal Mine while Sylphide tried to distract the king. The orc walked towards the girls, saying that they had decided to die themselves, so he would help them with that. He said that they would play a little first. Mane sat up and thought that he would not let the orc do that. The youth used the minor enhancement of his legs and paw. He rushed at the king using the skill insert. The king stopped and could not understand why his legs were not moving, while the young man stood in front of him, covering the girls with his body. The orc tried to stop the guy, but he used the highest skills of enhancing the arms and body, increasing strength. He also used martial arts skills and a flaming shark. The guy with Tuvering in his hands rushed at the orc king, cutting him in half. The monster slowly fell to the ground, and the young man landed next to him, breathing heavily. Tuvering disappeared. The boy thought that his strength was exhausted and he was empty. After this, the guy slowly began to fall, exhausted, but Aisha caught him. He told the girl that he was very glad that she was okay. He apologized and said that he shouldn't have used such powerful magic near her. The girl, with tears in her eyes, said that the boy was really a reckless child who only does what he does, saves everyone alone, making others worry about him. The girl asked the boy to value his life because it is important. The boy apologized. Princess Sylphide came up to them and said that the guy had caused them trouble, but despite that, he was still an amazing guy. Mine turned to the Lady Knight and asked what about the Orc King. The girl replied that the guy had won. He had defeated this terrifying monster single-handedly. The guy looked at the orc's body and said that he was able to protect and save the girls. The princess was sure that Mine had saved not only her and Aisha, but all the inhabitants of this country who would have suffered from the Orc King in the future. Princess Sylph looked at the young man and thought that Mine was truly amazing. After some time, they returned to the city. Sylphide apologized for causing so much trouble and thanked the guy for the delicious tea. Aisha also joined the girls' words. The princess told the boy that all the girls who were held captive by the orcs were now safe. Aisha added that fortunately none of them were seriously wounded or killed. For this, they were very grateful to the boy. Mine was happy because he was very worried about them when he fought with the king and the generals. He was very glad that everything ended well. Sylphide spoke about the boy's fight with the king. She said that in that battle the boy used more than 4 skills. The girl asked if she could find out where the boy got such strength from. Mane apologized and said that even though they saved him, he couldn't tell them about it. The princess replied that she thought the boy was doing the right thing by not telling her about his skills, but she already knew which ones he had been given. The guy was shocked, and Sylphide said that it seemed that the guy did not understand who she was. If he knew, he would be so arrogant. The guy tried to understand who she was. The girl said that she was sure that the guy could easily find out who she was. Mane thought he should use the scan to find out who she was. The guy saw the princess's status and was shocked. He suddenly fell off his chair, completely confused, and said that it was rude of him. He asked her for forgiveness, not knowing what to do. The girls looked at him, laughing slightly. Mine remembered how during the battle he ordered the princess to get out. The girl hastened to calm him down with the words that she owed the guy her life. Princess Sylphide approached Mine and took his hand, saying that she wanted to ask him for something. Mine sat down at the table and apologized for what had happened. He never thought he would see the princess, but now they were sitting at the same table. It shocked him. Sylphide replied that she should apologize too, as she did not think that this news would surprise him so much. The girl said that, to be honest, she doesn't consider herself a very important person, so it's possible to meet her at least once in her life. Aisha sat and thought that in fact the princess was only here to ask Mine about something important for the royal family. But the girl wasn't sure what the request was. Suddenly the boy turned to Aisha and asked if she was feeling well, as she had suddenly turned pale. The girl was embarrassed and replied that everything was fine. She apologized for disturbing him and then told the princess to continue. Sylph asked if Mine knew what policies the royal family was currently pursuing. The boy replied that he didn't know much about the royal family's affairs. He only knew that the king had some good ability. Sylphide replied that it was true. The royal family deliberately held events to obtain better abilities. The boy was surprised. The girl said that the boy probably knows that so-called abilities are inherited. However, there are many children in the world who experience abilities that are not the same as those of their parents. That's why the royal family considers it necessary to know about every ability of their subjects. Absolutely everyone, without exception. The guy was shocked. He seemed to understand what was being discussed. The girl noticed that the guy was beginning to understand. Girls and boys who have good abilities can easily become the wives and grooms of princes and princesses respectively. In other words, this event is created to find a force that can protect the country. So recently they were able to find out that one boy appeared who has a rather interesting ability. This young man was able to defeat 4 orcs on his own the very next day after his coming of age, and they say that he even defeated a C-class adventurer. Afterwards, he was able to fight a destructive-level monster in front of the princess. This is despite the fact that no subject could do something like this alone. The boy could not believe that this was the reason why the princess met him. The girl awkwardly called out to Main to voice her request. She asked the guy to become her husband. Main had already guessed but was still embarrassed. The girl told him not to think that she wanted this only because it was necessary. She said that as soon as she remembered his battle with the Orc King, his courage and how he protected them, she realized that she was fascinated by the guy like an ordinary girl. She explained and said that it had almost nothing to do with his ability or the royal family. Main was completely confused. How could such a sweet girl fall in love with someone like him? He thought happily that it was just a dream. It really couldn't be that the princess herself would come to him and wish for him to become her fiancé. It was simply impossible. The guy thought that it was still a shame that it was just a dream. If it were real, it would be cool. Princess Sylphide looked at the girl next to her and said that she thought that the guy interested not only her in this regard, but also Aisha. The guy sat even more confused. Aisha was also confused and looked at the princess. Mine suddenly realized the princess's words and choked. Mine coughed heavily and Aisha fussed. The girl told the princess that it was because she had said something strange. Sylph asked with a smile if she had misunderstood, to which Aisha replied with embarrassment that she did not know. The princess continued to say that she would not mind at all if Aisha also became his bride. After all, the royal family needs as many heirs as possible, so it is quite normal for a worthy man to have several wives. She asked if she and Aisha could bear him a child. The princess was shouted at to think about what she was saying. Was her ability to elegance just for decoration? The princess asked Aisha if she didn't want to give birth to Mine's child, to which she replied that it wasn't that she didn't want to. The girls chatted about this and Main looked at them and thought that for 5 years he had been alone all the time. He remembered returning to the house where no one said welcome back, always alone at this table. The boy thought about the smiles that had once been here, about the voices besides his. His family was taken away from him right before his eyes. The boy remembered his parents saying that this was really where their lives would end. Mine thought about the ability that steals other people's abilities. If someone knew he had one, he would definitely turn away from them. Would he ever be able to start a family if he was always afraid that someone would find out and had to keep it a secret all the time? Mine thought that the guild master had easily learned about this ability before. He couldn't use it in front of people anymore. After all, if someone learned about its power, then those smiles and joy would definitely disappear again. He didn't want that to happen. Main apologized and said that he was very happy when he heard that they had such feelings for him, but he didn't think he could accept them. Sylph asked the boy if he was afraid that someone would find out about his ability. She caught the boy off guard, so she knew she was right. The princess said that she already knew about his ability, and not only she. There were 2 other people who knew about it. The girl asked why the guy was afraid that someone would find out, why he continued to avoid people, why he suffered. The princess was sure that if the boy did not have this ability, something terrible would have happened. She admitted that his power was much more powerful than she imagined. But does the guy really want to carry this burden alone? Does he really just want to continue living without telling anyone about his ability? She asks if the guy is happy with this life. He will suffer not because he will hide his ability all his life, but because he will truly be completely alone. In this world, he will no longer be able to find those who can understand him. Does he really want this? Main thought that there were no more people to whom he could tell about his suffering. And about the people from the village who support him, he's afraid that they'll find out about his ability. But he lives here and won't be able to hide it for long. Someday they'll definitely find out like the guild leader did back then. Was Main going to have to leave this house away from all the villagers? But he didn't want that. The young man began to cry and said that he did not want to be alone. He said that he could stand being alone and that he would be fine even if he was alone. However, he did not know why he was crying. He just wanted to be told welcome back again to eat together. He wanted to taste his mother's food again, to spend a little more time with his parents. He didn't know why it all happened this way. Aisha looked at the guy with tears in her eyes and wondered if he had really been suffering like this all this time. The girl rushed to the guy and hugged him. She told Main that she would always be there. He could tell her about his ability and not worry about it anymore. She said she would say welcome back every day, cook and eat together, and create a place for the guy to come back to. Sylph appeared nearby and asked what it meant. Aisha would marry Mine. Aisha jumped away from the guy and cried out in embarrassment. It turns out that she agreed, even though she was 9 years older than him. Main was also happy. Sylphide turned to the guy and apologized for the fact that her words caught the guy off guard. She did not want to hurt him. The young man said in a panic that they were fine. Sylphide said that she also wanted to create a cozy place, wanted to become a girl he could rely on and show that she could protect him. Main thanked her. He turned to the girls and said that he wanted to say something. The young man asked the girls to become his family. Morning came. Main slept for a long time. It was already light outside. He got up and smelled a delicious smell. The guy went into the kitchen where the girls were sitting. Aisha said that breakfast was almost ready and Sylphide called him a sleepyhead. Mine greeted the girls shyly. They sat down to eat breakfast, which Aisha had prepared. The food was very tasty. The guy learned that the girls had gone to the market for groceries. Aisha was quite popular, so people would come up to them and offer them food while they were just walking around the city. The girl said that when she was an adventurer, she also lived in Rukas, so she had many acquaintances. She was glad that no one had changed much. Mine only realized that the girl was an adventurer and not just a registrar in the guild. Sylph said that Aisha was much stronger than her, because she handled the bow so skillfully that they even began to call her the Holy Bow Aisha. The princess looked at the guy carefully and he realized that she wanted the guy to scan Aisha. The guy mentally apologized for doing this during a conversation. While Aisha was talking, Mine scanned her and saw that she was strong. The girl was a B-rank adventurer, higher than Ryle. The boy stared at the girl, causing Aisha to ask if he was okay. He suddenly realized that the girls had easily dealt with the high orcs. Aisha asked why the princess didn't tell him about the clan. Sylph asked him if he wanted to form a clan with them, with Mine as the leader. The boy asked what that was. The girl explained that it was something like a personal guild, for the creation of which the king's permission was needed. If you get it, then special privileges appear. The clan can accept requests from an aristocrat and even the royal family because confidentiality is maintained within it. Due to this feature, the personal data of clan members is protected by the country. That is, if a person does not want to talk about his ability, then even the king cannot touch to talk about it. Otherwise, criminal punishment. This means that the secret of Mine will be protected by the country. Also, the clan can choose the tasks to take on. The boy asked if it was really just for him. Aisha reminded him that the boy had said he wanted to thank the people in the village. Main expressed his gratitude to the girls. The boy asked if the three of them could form a clan, to which Sylphide replied that it depended on the king. There were a little more than 10 clans in this country, but only 3 could be called great. These are the alchemists who have formed their alchemical library. The leader is the second prince, Ruiz August, the brother of the princess. The second, Rising Sandstream, is a clan that only accepts missions to escort or speed up the enemy. The leader is the A-rank adventurer, Cashew. The third clan, the Conquerors of the Human Cycle, obey magical creatures. The leader is the B-rank adventurer, Tails. On average, there are about 10 people in a clan, but their discipline and level of trust are much higher than Main's previous guild. The princess believed that the strength of his comrades was that he could trust them. She said that she believed that their strength was comparable to that of a real army. Sylph said that she still wanted to become stronger so that Mine could trust her. Aisha agreed with the princess because when she went to save Mine, she herself was taken hostage and saved by the past. The princess wanted to get at least a little closer to Mine's power, so she was going to persuade her father. Suddenly Mine jumped up and asked what they were doing. If it weren't for Sylph, the king would have simply killed the guy, and he managed to defeat the orc because Aisha was able to heal the guy. The boy exclaimed that he himself could not have done anything. The 3 of them defeated the orc king. The girls accepted Mine's words with embarrassment. Sylphide said that it was the first time the guy called her by her name without any formality. Aisha was also pleased, but she was not yet ready to move on to informal communication. Mine was very embarrassed when he realized everything. He quickly apologized to the princess and Aisha. The girls said that if the guy continued like this, they would have to deal with the guy, so he quickly tried to address them by name. Sylph said that she would take the body of the Orc King and the general to show her father, as that would increase the chance of approval. She also said that the application would take about 5 days to be processed, so she would not be able to return in the evening. Aisha also said that she needed to go to the Royal Capital Guild to submit her resignation, but she would be back by evening. The guy understood everything and the girls were about to leave when suddenly he stopped them. Maine wished the girls a safe journey, to which they replied that they would be back soon. The girls set off. Sylphide told Aisha that she would not mind if the girl called her by her name, but Aisha replied that she could not do that and would call the girl princess as before. A young man passed by in a carriage and recognized the girl. He asked if she was Her Highness Sylphide. He was curious about what the princess was doing in this village. The guy turned to the escort and asked if he had seen the girl. The man replied that the princess was here because the young Master Cloud had recently proposed to her. The guy ordered to find out the reason why she left this house. Maine went to the shop calling the man uncle. The owner was very surprised and asked what happened. The man apologized and said that he was putting the guns in order because for some reason everyone was buying them today. Maine said that he actually came to buy swords and the previous ones were broken. This surprised the man very much. The man looked at the blade and said that it was completely broken despite the fact that this time it was made of diamond. The guy replied that it happened during the battle with the Orc King. The man was shocked and Maine quickly corrected himself, saying that it was a high-level orc. The man said that if the boy was looking for another short sword, he should look at that shelf. Mine thought that at this rate he would blab about his ability. The boy began to look for something on the level of his previous blade. Mine saw a short black sword that had the property of growing. He told his uncle that he would take it. The man asked the boy if he was sure, because the sword was only good for cutting up a carcass. The man said which one should he choose, and then asked the boy if he had really defeated the Orc King. The young man looked at the man and nodded, and he asked if he was alone. The boy replied that his comrades had helped him. The man looked at the young man and then offered to look at another sword. He said that this short sword was given to him by a close friend when he used it. The sword was enveloped in lightning. The man said that as soon as his friend died, the lightning power disappeared from the sword. He said that for a short sword it was very sharp and then asked if the boy wanted to hold it in his hands. Mine agreed and took the blade. It really does contain the power of lightning. It seems to overflow. Mine also suddenly felt strange. It seemed to him that this had happened before. The man saw his friend Dane behind the young man. Maine wanted to ask a question about this sword, but the man looked at him silently. He suddenly apologized and said that smoke got into his eyes. The man said that since the boy liked the blade, he could take it. Maine said that this was not right because it was an important blade for the man. The uncle replied that he did not mind at all because by staying with him, her sword would be of use, so he wanted the young man to use it. The man asked Mine to show him the sword's true form again, to which the boy replied that he would try. He thanked his uncle for this sword and said that when he returned the power of lightning to him, he would definitely show it. Maine left, and the man thought that if only the boy knew that this sword belonged to his father Dane. The man was sure that his precious comrades would protect him. He hoped that the young man would treat the sword with care. He felt smoke in his eyes again. Mine jumped up using Rock Slash. He used the insert skill on the big monster and then gave a sign to Aisha. The girl, who was ready to attack, received the signal and fired several shots directly at the monster. They did a great job. Mine said that these ogres were strong opponents. The girl was surprised that the ogre could create stones to attack them, but the guy said that was their main ability. Suddenly, a wall opened in front of them, and they saw a staircase leading down. Mine asked the girl about the stone nearby, to which she replied that it was a stone of movement. If you touch it, it will send you straight to the entrance of the dungeon. The same stone is there, it will transfer to this place. The girl said that there are trolls below, and the guy answered that it is better to leave them for tomorrow. They approached and touched the stone. They were indeed transported to the entrance in an instant. Mine thought that the Orc King had such an ability. The girl suggested going to look for a place to stay for the night. They went out into the city. It was quite lively despite the fact that it was already evening. Aisha explained that many energetic adventurers lived here. It was the capital of the dungeons of Adora, a city in the north of Rukasa. It is mainly visited by adventurers who search for materials. The power of the dungeon has many mysteries. Many come to get materials, but there are also those who are interested in mysteries. One of them is the number of monsters in the dungeon, which never decreases. There are also many unknown species in the dungeon, but the ecosystem has not yet been proven. The power of the dungeon has existed since ancient times. It is said that it is a prank created by God, and it is a demonic path leading to hell itself. Because of the constant trips to the dungeon, people decided to settle in this city. That's how it became populated. It turns out that adventurers built this city. Mine came here for resources for his novice short sword, and Aisha told him about the city. The girl pointed to a sword in the shop and said it looked like the boy's blade. They approached and greeted the merchant. Mine thought that he already had a one-handed sword and a beginner's bow, so Aisha and Sylphie could use them. The merchant told the boy that if he was going to go into the dungeon, it would be better not to take this sword. Although this weapon drops from monsters and is quite rare, it is very weak. The man said that the blade quickly becomes dull and the bow breaks from the tension of the bowstring, so it is better not to take them with you or not to go at all. The merchant said not to be deceived by appearances because the adventurers called him a stain on the reputation of an adventurer, which was quite cruel. Mine asked Aisha if he should take it since he didn't think it was such a terrible weapon. The girl suggested making it a starting point. The couple took the bow and sword. The man thanked them for their purchase but repeated his words. Maine said he was hungry, so he suggested looking for a place to stay for the night. The girl agreed, saying it would be nice to find an inexpensive place. The guy awkwardly took the girl's hand and said that there were so many people around them, so they should hold hands so as not to get lost. Aisha shyly called the guy's name. The couple found a place that looked quite expensive, but the other hotels were already full and they had money. Aisha noticed a healing bath and immediately told the guy about it. It contains water that has a restorative effect. It can heal fatigue or wounds. It also has a cleansing effect. The girl was very excited. Suddenly, someone's hand appeared on the guy's face. A creature similar to a man with the ears of an animal greeted the young man in the estate of the Silver Bell, calling him a sweet boy. Aisha saw this and exclaimed, and the creature asked if this was the boy's older sister. Maine exclaimed that it was his wife. The creature clung to the young man and said that it would then show them their spare room. The cost per guest was 1 gold coin. Aisha pushed the creature away and asked it to show them. The couple was taken to a beautiful room which even had a healing bath. Maine asked if they thought the room was too spacious. The creature left the room, thinking how naive the guests were. Maine stuck his hand into the water, which was quite hot. Aisha wondered where all the steam was going. The young man asked if it was possible to enter the bathroom fully clothed, to which the girl replied in the negative. Everything was visible there, so they were embarrassed. Maine suggested going to the bathroom together, and Aisha agreed. Meanwhile, Sylphie was in August Castle. The girl was walking down the corridor when her brother called out to her. He had already heard about the girl's engagement. The prince said that he should be the one to acknowledge her fiancé. He believed that a boy from a common family did not have a strong enough ability. He said to the princess, couldn't a brother accept something like that? The girl simply replied that her husband was a man who had defeated the Orc King and that her father had already given permission for the marriage. The prince was shocked. The boy laughed and said that he was looking forward to meeting him. Sylphie replied that she would not allow them to meet so that mine would not be infected by the prince's ardor. Sylphie opened the doors and asked her father if the permission to create a clan was ready. The girl saw a guy next to her father. The king said that the girl had a guest. The guy greeted the princess, saying that she looked damn charming. The girl frowned, and the guy turned out to be the heir of Lord Roselia, Claude. Sylphide asked why Claude had come, since she had made it clear that she was refusing to be engaged to him. Claude heard something he could not accept. He learned that the princess wished to marry a commoner who had nothing, and such an act would only stain the royal blood. For a country inhabited by people and nobility, this was an act that would not be forgiven. Claude said that he would appear here. The guy asked to fight with mine, and if he won, the girl would refuse to marry him. He offered to find out if this commoner really deserved to be near her. Let him prove it. Mine goes to the dungeon again. He says in surprise that this is yesterday's place. After all, this stone of movement is simply amazing. The girl says that he is right, it is a very convenient device. He says that if the princess had such a power of movement, she could return home in the blink of an eye. She agrees and says that it would be great. She suggests that Mina should go down already. They go down into the dungeon and hear some sounds. The boy shouts for Aisha to run. She runs after him. She says that there are basilisks on this floor, he should beware of their claws. He answers that he understood her. At this time, Kisu and Ammon are fighting a huge bird monster that is flapping its wings majestically. Kisu shouts that he will take on this monster, and Ammon must take those who were injured and run with them. Ammon tells Kisu to stop joking, believing that he is risking his life for the group. Kisu calls him a fool. Ammon decides to protect the group despite the danger. The others are injured. Kisu leaves with the monster, trusting Ammon. Ammon tries to wake up the unconscious Alfred and Reese, realizing that he urgently needs to save the group from Kisu. He discovers that the healing potion has been lost. He keeps trying to wake up his friends, but to no avail. At this time, Kisu barely escapes. He realizes that there seems to be petrification poison in these claws. He stops and says that without a doubt, if he gets these claws, he will become Brang very soon, so he decides to take them. He attacks. The bird does not touch him. Kisu smugly asks how he can handle this, but the bird knows him. He falls. One of the bird's legs is torn off. With his other paw, he pinned Kisa to the ground. He says to let him go. He has no such preferences. He doesn't like it when a monster sits on top of him. His hand starts to get covered with stones. The bird opens its mouth and squeals. Kisu says that if she eats it, she will only ruin her stomach. The bird moves away and prepares to finish it off when Mine appears from above with her sword. Mine uses his martial art, Flaming Shark. Kisu squints, not understanding what kind of destructive power it is. Mine lands. Kiss is surprised and says that it is like a real natural disaster. The girls run up to Kiss. He says that he sees that they are okay. They say that he is not because his hand turned into stone. Aisha quietly tells Maine that she told him not to overdo it. He asks her for forgiveness. Kisu is surprised by Aisha and Mine. Riza says that they helped them. Kisu turns to them and thanks them for saving him. Man says that he is glad that they are okay. Ammon also thanks Mine. Kisu says that they are exploring the dungeon to raise the guild's morale, but his life is more important. Mine asks the reason for the low morale. Kisu hands them the boots and says that this fell from the foot of that chicken. Let them take 2 pairs, they belong to them. Aisha says in surprise that these are speed boots and she sees others for the first time. Mine asks if these aren't Kisu's things. He replies that they don't need them, so they can throw them away if they don't need them either. Aisha thanks Kisu with delight. The 4 leave. Kisu tells them to try not to die there. They will see each other again. They say goodbye. Maine obeys him. Kisu says he can't believe that the kid became so strong after that incident. Riza asks what incident. He says that a few days ago, when he was riding to Rukasa in a cart, they were attacked by marauders. Yes, it seems to have been a week ago, and Maine was riding in that cart. He says that then he looked out of the cart before anyone else. This could be called recklessness, maybe even courage. Ammon says it's okay. Mine is a teenager who cares about other people's lives. He understands that since he was the one who saved him. Kisu agrees. Ammon points at Alfred and asks why he is crying. He explains that it is because he loved Aisha very much. He is told to forget about it. Aisha and Maine walk through the cave. Mine asks if it seems to her that the dungeon is getting wetter. She replies that it is because they are already close to the trolls and they like dampness, so he should watch his step and be careful. He says that he understands her. Mine tells Aisha to wait because he thinks there's someone there. He uses his detection skill. He says that this is slime, this wall, all this is slime in disguise. Aisha looks around. Suddenly the cave becomes warm. Everything is steaming. Aisha says that it is steam. He says that it really is. The temperature is the same as in that medicinal bath. Maine thinks about how nice it was back then. He tells himself that he shouldn't think about it now. He grabs Aisha's hand and tells her not to leave him. He uses vision enhancement, full scan. He reads the stats and thinks, I wonder what the point of this is. He begins to realize that they combine their abilities to create a pair. But what is the point of this pair if it doesn't do any damage? Aisha asks him if he has already noticed. She says that trolls like it when it is damp and the slime continues to release steam. Main uses wind magic. He clears the steam and realizes that there are giant trolls standing right in front of them. The slime had been calling them all along. Aisha tells Mine to be careful. Even though trolls are not very agile, they have a high recovery ability. This can be a big problem. Mine wonders what kind of recovery ability. He uses a full scan. Mine notices the high regeneration of the opponents and decides to test their strength alone, calming the doubting Aisha. Mine prepares to attack. He thinks to first test the recovery ability a little. He cuts off Wintroll's arm. Main muses that defeating the Orc King has leveled him up, but killing the basilisk took too much effort, putting the team at risk. In anger, the troll attacks him. He manages to move away and sees that the arms he had just torn off have already grown back. He meets the troll's gaze and is immediately struck by it. He flies back, covering his eyes with his hands. He wonders if it was just a magical eye flash attack. He tested his abilities. Aisha shouts at him not to let his guard down. The troll isn't his only enemy. He looks back and sees slime covering him. He panics and screams, where do they get such strength from? He can't free himself. The troll looks at him. Main doesn't understand what to do. Aisha clears the area of slime, saving Mine. She notices that he is having trouble dealing with multiple enemies at once. She realizes that this monster is strong. She is too weak to defeat it, so she must do everything she can to help Mine. Mine asks Aisha if she saw him fly from the troll's strike. She replies that she only noticed the troll's eyes glowing. Mine wonders if it is safe to use this skill in front of people. He reaches out and uses a magical eye flash, causing the monster to have a wound on its arm. He says that these wounds can no longer be healed. He copes with all the trolls. Aisha looks at him with admiration. Having received the troll's skin, Mine and Aisha sheepishly recall their joint healing bath the day before. While hiding from the steam, Mine and Aisha notice a strange rumbling noise and realize it is footsteps. She says that it is a monster that exceeds the strength and body size of the Orc King, with better regeneration than normal trolls, the master of this level of the dungeon. A monster that continues to take the lives of many adventurers. Aisha warns that the approaching troll is comparable in power to the Orc King, advising an immediate retreat. Main is amazed by the enemy's strength. He prepares to attack and thinks that for him it is just a big monster. Aisha suggests that it is better for him to retreat. Mine activates the weapon. He tells Aisha that he will kill him and she should return through the travel stone. Aisha sees a light and realizes that it is the same one from the battle with the Orc King. A bright light is on. After a while, they are all riding in a carriage with other adventurers. Mine sleeps on Aisha's shoulder. The girl thinks that it is simply unthinkable that he actually managed to defeat the wandering troll caretaker. She thinks that he is too strong. She understands that he still has little experience in real battles, so he can easily get into a dangerous situation. She and the princess will have to give him maximum support. For the sake of Main, she must become as strong as possible. However, what if in a place where neither she nor the princess will be around? She wonders what if something irreversible happens to him. Mine asks her if everything is okay. He says she looks tired. She says not to worry, she's fine. She asks because he's much more tired. Arrested, Main and Aisha leave the camp, seeing the city of Lucas ahead, and begin a walk through the streets. Mine says that Lucas is much calmer. Aisha agrees and says that she likes this city too. They greet people on the way. A merchant recognizes Aisha and asks if she has just returned to Lucas. She introduces Roku Maina as her husband and says that they have not seen each other for a long time. She got married in this city, so now she lives here. Aisha praises the craftsmanship of Roku the carpenter, who created the guild's bathroom based on the bathtub in the Silver Bell Manor. Mine is surprised to learn that Roku made the bathtub there as well. Main apologizes and asks if he could make a bath like that in his house. His cheeks are red and Aisha is surprised by the request. They come to their house. Roku says that this is Dine's house. He could not even imagine that the boy Mine would be his son. He asks if he really knew his father. He replies that of course he knew. There is no one in Lucas who does not know Dina and Yukino. Aisha muses that in her childhood there was a legendary bow maker, a man he admired so much. And his name was Dane. Main says that the father, it turns out, was so famous. Aisha wonders if this is possible. Roku turns to Dane's son and asks if he has magical tools. He asks again. Roku says one is for pumping water from the well and the other is for making it hot in the bath. Roku explains that the baths are expensive. The instruments cost up to 2,000 gold, so they are used mainly by aristocrats and royalty. Mine thinks that 2,000 gold is too much. He thinks about the hot water and wonders if the slime did something similar. He remembers something. Mine says he will prepare these magical tools so he can make a bath. He says he can. He doesn't have any important things to do right now, so he can start work by tomorrow. Roku says that in that case he will bring his apprentices here soon and they will discuss the process of work together. Mine says that he is counting on them. They say goodbye. Aisha asks him if he can definitely prepare these magical instruments. He answers that he can. She should not worry. He himself hopes inside that everything will work out. Mine says she'll go to the barn because the trolls need to be butchered anyway and she can rest at home for now. She agrees and says she'll go relax a bit until the master arrives. He goes into the barn and thinks that this is the house that his father left him, the barn that he used. In this place dear to him, for the sake of those who have become his new family, he wants to create the best bath. He runs his hand along the wall and says that before he starts butchering the trolls, he'll first go create some magical tools. That transfer stone is from the power of the dungeon. Its power is very similar to the one used by the Orc King to instantly move. The abilities of this monster were materialization and royal submission. He thinks that if the king could move through space using this ability, then he can move in the same way as with the help of the Stone of Movement. He needs to connect with him. First, he will try to use a mental image. Using space and time, he needs to remember that place with the slugs in the power of the dungeon. He finds himself in that cave. A hole has formed in front of him. He notices that steam is coming out of the hole on the other side. He says that this can't be, there is a slug ahead. He takes a step forward and enters that hole. He says inside the same cave that there can be no mistake. This is the power of the dungeon. He is surprised because the journey from Lucas to here takes half a day by cart. He sees that the hole has disappeared. He thinks that its time of action has expired. He tells himself there is no time to be surprised. The steam begins to thicken. Min says that he doesn't use the impossibility of detection in every case. He needs to have time to make magical tools before the master arrives. He finds something on the ground and says that this stone will become his magical instrument. He keeps thinking, if he inserts this ability into this stone, the stone begins to flow. The stone seems to be covered in slime. He is glad that he succeeded and that this is a real success. He says that now it will be great if he can make this stone stop flowing whenever he wants. If he thinks correctly, then it should definitely work. Using a special magic of space and time, he stops the time of the stone. The stone stops flowing. He shouts that it has stopped. It turned out exactly as he wanted. Now all that remains is to make this stone also heat up. He tries and shouts that the water is heating up. He thinks maybe he should make a few more of these stones. He thinks 3 will be enough after trying 5. Steam comes out of the stone. He looks and says that he has succeeded. All that remains is to find out if it will be possible to make a healing bath out of it. He scans. He sees that the heat added to the magical water has made it hot water, which has magical healing powers. He is surprised that ordinary water has become magical. So the troll is panicking. He has nothing to fight him with, so he needs to leave as soon as possible. He changes his mind because he looks at his sword and remembers the regenerative ability of trolls. If he takes this short sword that broke during the battle with the Orc King, he wonders if it will work. Here from the hole, Aisha calls him and says that the master is already approaching. The troll hears and turns to Main, and he is surprised that the voice reaches even here. The troll attacks in anger. Mine goes into the hole, manages to cut out the regeneration, and goes out into the barn. However, the troll's hand catches him. Aisha enters the barn and asks if he is there. She asks in surprise why there is this hand above him. He says that he screwed up a little bit with butchering the troll. Aisha says that the master and his apprentices are already waiting in the living room. He thanks her. He notices that his small sword is being restored and covered in steam. Now it has the ability to regenerate. Aisha hears his surprise and asks him what's wrong. He panics and replies that nothing. He muses that if he adds a regenerative ability to the weapon, it can be restored. It's a bit disgusting, but very convenient. Aisha asks if he was able to fix that short sword. The craftsmen come to their home. They inspect everything, build, lift, and Main approves everything. Main is delighted with the magnificence of the completed bath. noting the professionalism of the workers who completed the project in just 3 days. Mine says that since there is no ceiling, they will be able to enjoy the sky. Aisha adds that thanks to these windows, no one will be able to see them from inside this room, so they can relax in peace and no one will bother them. Aisha says that because of the direct sunlight you can smell the trees here. It seems like the bath is in the morning forest. She is simply speechless. Main says he is so glad to see her so happy. Aisha opens her eyes and looks surprised. Mine says that since they got back from Adora, she's been a little depressed, so he's been worried. He wants everyone in his family to be smiling. Then the princess comes, calls her husband and Aisha and says that she has returned home. Mine says that Sylphie has come. She says that she is sure that if the princess sees this bathtub, she will be very surprised. They want to show her this bathtub as soon as possible. They open the door and greet her with a smile, then they stand there in confusion and ask who it is. The guy next to the princess asks what she is doing here. Aisha immediately recognizes His Majesty Aruto. The king expresses doubt in the hero's ability to protect both wives, especially after defeating the Orc King. The princess defends her husband, claiming that her words are true. The princess excuses her brother's behavior as a severe case of sisterhood, suggesting that her husband ignore him. Main admits that this is difficult to do. Brother says that this is a great offer. He asks Main if he would like to fight him. Mine looks at him suspiciously. Brother says that he just wants to make sure that he really is a man capable of protecting his women. The princess defends and tells her brother not to talk nonsense. Their marriage has already been approved by their father. There is no reason to fight with him. Brother tells Sylphie that she is very dear to him as a sister. He will not accept any man next to her until he can trust him. Mine turns to him. He asks to be allowed to fight him. He wants to prove to him that Sylphie is also dear to him as a family member, and not only Sylphie, but Aisha as well. The brother says that he understands his look and suggests that they begin. The women on the side are delighted by this. They go out into the free space. Brother warns Main about possible injuries even with fake swords and reminds him of the rules of the duel. The fight continues until someone gives up or loses consciousness. Main agrees. Aisha asks him if he is sure. Sylphie says that her brother himself wanted to fight him. He is not obliged to agree. Main says he said he wanted to check it out, and he did too. If they hadn't been there then, the Orc King would have definitely killed him, so he himself wants to know if he has the power to protect them. He just wants to know. Sylphie says that she understood him. Well then, let him hit her brother with all his heart, but let him not forget that they trust him even without this battle. Mine thanks them and prepares for battle. The brother immediately tells him that he knows about his 2 abilities, so he can look at it without embarrassment. He sees his characteristics and thinks that his abilities are just like the king's. Is he even stronger than his father? Aruto thinks that he's using a full scan. He doesn't know what he sees there, but it's already written all over his face. Aruto yells that he's starting. He yells that he's ready. The battle begins. Aruto disappears from his place and ends up behind Mine. Mine uses Iron Wall, squints and thinks, what kind of speed is this? He moved in the blink of an eye. Aruto disappears again. Mine uses Medium Vision Enhancement. He sees Aruto's silhouette right to the side. He thinks in horror, wasn't he far away from him? He manages to put his sword out and parry the blow. He understands that it is hard. It feels like he is about to be crushed. He copies Aruto's abilities and also begins to move quickly. Aruto is surprised. Man thinks that he was finally able to use this ability. He ends up behind Aruto, but he disappears, leaving behind the shoes he sealed. He simply took them off. Aruto hits Main from behind. He flies far away and falls. The girls are worried about him and call him by name out of fear. Aruto forbids interference in the duel, otherwise he will admit his defeat. He wonders why the opponent who defeated the Orc King still ridicules his skills. He asks him if he is exhausted yet. He replies that he is not yet. He gets up with the thought that he still couldn't do anything. He thinks that he should at least land 1 blow. Aruto thinks that's right. Let him show him his power in action. Mine ponders that if he couldn't use copying, then how could he do that? He uses support magic, namely decreasing speed. Aruto doesn't understand what's wrong because he feels like his body has become so heavy. Mine moves using wind magic. Aruto sees this and doesn't understand what he's using it for. He muses that if he uses it as a smokescreen, he'll attack from above, as he predicted Mine would attack from above. Aruto moves. Mine doesn't understand how this is possible. He used a speed decrease on him. He thinks that by increasing the speed, he deactivated the ability that he cast on him. Sylphie says that she certainly knows that her brother is strong, but for Mine, who was called the disaster killer, to not be able to touch either his arms or legs, Mine muses that even though His Majesty only has 3 abilities, no matter how many he has, he still feels this huge difference in strength. Aruto criticizes Mine for being overly reliant on abilities and lacking a tactical approach in combat. He can't protect 2 girls now, he can't even protect himself. Aruto appears behind Mine and says that this is too slow. If this was a real fight, he would be dead 3 times over. Mine moves away from him and realizes that he is too fast, he can't let him attack from behind. He begins to realize that he is constantly going behind his back. He pushes off the ground and thinks he should try. He's attacking, now His Highness Aruto will definitely get behind him. At that moment he should. To be able to strike, Aruto manages to deflect the blow with his sword. Mine thinks that he was able to. For the first time, His Highness had to defend himself. Aruto states that he can read Mine's every move. Realizing this, Mine decides to speed up his attacks to become unpredictable. He uses undetectable. The girls see that he has disappeared. Aruto also panics a little. Aruto wonders what he's up to, even though he can't see his figure, but he realizes that he's just running around him, though his movements are still too clumsy. Aruto smiles and thinks, I wonder if he does this so that his movements can't be seen. He succeeds, he can't read him. Aruto is interested in finding out who is faster. Remembering his youth, he is confident in his superiority. Mine activates the magic eye, preparing to attack. He says that he will teach him as the first prince and elder brother. However, Aruto is horrified. Mine comes with a sword. The girls cover their mouths with their hands in fear. Aruto's sword touches Mine's chest. Mine coughs up blood. Mine says with a winning tone that he reached his body. Aruto thinks that this can't be. Was he really just trying to get under his skin all this time? Sylphie screams at her brother that this is too much. Does he really want to kill him? She screams at Aisha to heal him quickly. They run to them. They panic and drag him into the house to heal him. Evening comes. Sylphie looks at Aisha sadly. Sylphie says that she can't believe that things have come to this. She knew she shouldn't have brought her brother. Aisha tells her not to worry so much. Luckily, Maine is okay, and she is also glad that he and her brother were able to become friends. Sylphie worries that Aisha's hot temper will affect Mine, causing him to go study at his brother's castle. She screams that even now he left them alone. Even in her house, it was her brother who went into the bath with her husband first. How jealous she is. Just the thought of them being there together makes her head hurt. Aisha is worried. Sylphie turns to Sylphie and says that she, too, probably wants to rub her husband's back like a wife after all, so she wants to too. Aisha tells the princess that in fact, when she and Mine went to Adora, they stayed in the same mansion that had a similar bath and they took it together. Sylphie looks at her in confusion. Sylphie apologizes, claiming that she didn't mean to leave her friend behind. Aisha accepts the apology calmly, admitting to being slightly jealous. Here, Sylphie begins to wonder if her brother's relationship with her husband is better than hers. She falls silent and thinks. She analyzes the situation. He comes like this, challenges him to a duel, and then inflicts a serious injury. Now they are together in the bath. How long will he bother her at all? Sylphie, armed with a sword, insists on killing an unarmed enemy. Aisha resolutely opposes this intention. That night in the bath, Aruto apologizes to Mine for his injuries. Thanks to the treatment and the bath, Mine has recovered quickly. He ponders the possibility of transferring his regenerative ability into a stone to safely heal himself. However, because he wanted to gain His Majesty's recognition so much, he used too many abilities, so surely Aruto thinks he's abnormal. Aruto says that having more than 4 abilities is cool. He surprised him. However, he doesn't know how to use them at all. Relying too much on his abilities, he only does what he does head-on. Aruto scolds Mine for his predictable movements, comparing them to a river's one-way flow, and demands more training. He asks what he will do if he can't read the flow of movements. It sounds simple, but the best option is to change it himself. At the very end, his movements were no longer as bad as at the beginning. As he thought through different attack options, they became more difficult to predict. Mine says guiltily that he ended up reading them anyway. Aruto says that it wasn't reading. He simply created a new flow that directed it towards him. If he does not understand which way the flow is moving, he needs to create his own. This is the foundation of foundations. Aruto reveals his defensive strategy, leaving his left side vulnerable, forcing Mine to attack from the right, making it easier to parry the blows. He says that although he did take a big risk, he didn't know what other abilities he had hidden, and that made him quite nervous. There's silence, and Mine looks at Aruto expectantly. Aruto promises to keep Mine's abilities a secret for the sake of his sister Sylphie. The king wanted to verify his son-in-law's powers by asking his daughter to share information. Sylphie promises to keep her husband's secrets, asking the king to forgive her selfishness and ignorance. However, if he cannot forgive her, she is ready to be punished for all her actions. The king looked sternly at first and then smirked. The king laughs and apologizes to his daughter for trying to find out her husband's secrets. Aruto is pleased. Sylphie is grateful to her father. She then said that she thanked him with all her heart for his generosity. Mine, having learned about this, said that this could not be. Sylphie was ready to suffer punishment just to protect him. He remembers the words so that he forgets that they already trust him completely. He begins to think and cry that, despite this, he only thought about how His Highness would recognize him. Aruto stands up and tells him to save his regrets for later. He asks if he wants to use his mysterious power to protect Sylphie and this country. He is surprised by such a question. He asks he knows a man named Claude Roselia, an ill-mannered and sick man. He only cares about money and his position in society, a truly disgusting person. Maine says that he has not heard of such a person. He says that from a trusted source he managed to find out that something dangerous had fallen into his hands. In other words, Claude Roselia had gotten his hands on a magical monster that had the power to destroy the country. The power of dragons surpasses even the most massive natural disasters. One flap of their wings can knock down all the trees in their path, two flap cause a tornado that will destroy an entire city, and their wrath threatens to be the end of a country. Mine listens with interest. Aisha asks if he really means that this Claude wants to tame a dragon. Aruto says no, he got his hands on one young black dragon. Most likely they just stole it from their nest. Maine asks if he is really talking about the cub. What does he need it for? He suggests that perhaps for the sake of money, dragons are very rare monsters. That is why their prices are high. Maybe he knows about the rarity of the dragon, but most likely does not understand its danger. If the parent of a cub learns that its child has been kidnapped by humans, it will indiscriminately begin to destroy everything in its path. In order to prevent this, they must return this cub. Aruto says that he planned that together they could capture Claude and extract information about the dragon from him. Aruto says that just recently he unexpectedly came to an audience with the king and declared that he was against his engagement with Sylphie. He says that Claude said that he wanted to challenge him to a duel with the condition that if he wins, they will break off their engagement. Mine is surprised to duel him, but how does he know that he is Sylphie's husband? He says that Claude Roselia's house is in Lucas. He suddenly saw Sylphie walking around his city and decided to find out why she went there. Aruto says that more than one aristocrat wants to marry Sylphie, so Claude is no exception. Mine and Aisha are surprised. Even though she has already rejected him, he believes that if he does not give in, he can gain the position and power of the royal family. He plans to get his hands on Sylphie by any means necessary. Aisha says that there is no need for Maine to accept the challenge. The princess has already refused Claude. Aruto says that he won't let this go. As he said, he was planning to grab him at that moment and force him to tell about the dragon. He turns sharply to Mine. He asks if he would like to accept his challenge. To be honest, it is actually a direct request from the king, so Aruto asks as his representative. Aruto says that they must catch Claude and the people he hired to steal the baby dragon. There is no point in catching only this dog, because until they catch all the culprits, they will not be able to hush up this matter. Mine finds out from Aruto that he plans to use him as bait to attract Claude's attention and call the mercenaries for help. Then Sylphie turns to him and says that she wants him to refuse. Maine raises his head and looks at her questioningly. Sylphie asks Mine to refuse to participate in Aruto's plan, fearing that family relationships will suffer due to conflicts with Claude. Maine tells her that her problems are now his too, because she is his wife, and if she finds herself in a difficult situation, he will definitely help her. Sylphie blushes. Mine says that, besides, he himself wants to return the baby dragon to its parents. Aisha puts her hand on Sylphie's hand. He says that there is no need to keep everything to herself, and she accepts the support. Aruto pats Mine on the shoulder and thanks him. He says that they will all rely on his power. He asks if he used that secret power that could kill him back then. Mine swallows. He screams in panic that he doesn't have that kind of power. He laughs and asks why he is being so modest. Mine says that he is wrong. Aisha and Sylphie turn around and think that if he had used Tuering, he would have most likely cut his brother in half. Aruto tells Mine to stop addressing him as His Highness, since he is now his older brother. Aruto suggests that Mine call him brother, imitating Sylphie's mannerisms. Mine almost agrees, but Sylphie objects, fearing that stupidity will be conveyed. They accompany Aruto, who thanks Mine for letting him stay the night, who says he is grateful too for teaching him a lesson. Aruto says that he is returning to the castle to report everything to the king, but he sincerely asks them not to forget that they are responsible for their actions. He gets into the cart and tells them not to forget that Claude lives in Lucas. They think that they didn't even say anything. Aruto says he will let you know when the day of the match is set. He stops and tells Sylphie that she has met wonderful comrades. He hopes she will be happy. He leaves. Mine says what a wonderful brother His Majesty Aruto is, so strong and cool. Aisha agrees with him. Sylphie turns away and says that he is just a selfish prince with a sister complex. She smiles secretly and thanks her brother. Aisha and Maine run after her and ask her to wait. Sylphie says that, however, as her brother said, until they sort things out, it's better not to publicize their relationship. If they make a fuss in the city, then Claude's family will definitely do something bad. She says that perhaps they should meet with the mayor of the city and ask him for assistance. Aisha agrees and says that it will be much safer that way. Someone sees them from behind. Sylphie says that they need to tell him that they are now living in Lucas. She asks Aisha if she wants to go with him to the mayor of the city. She agrees. The girl from behind recognizes Mine. Sylphie turns to Mine and asks if he told anyone that they were married. Mine shakes his head. Sylphie asks him not to tell anyone for now that he is married to the first princess. Then the girl hugs Mine from behind and wishes him a good morning with all her love. Mainu is embarrassed. It's the wife of the owner of the alchemy shop. Sylphie looks on tensely. That girl understands and screams that Mayna's wife is a princess. They all shut her mouth and say that this is not right. Let her be quieter. You can't scream here. They all go into a corner. People discuss whether someone really shouted something. Sylphie turns to the girl and tells her to follow her. Mine wishes to hide her relationship with Sylphie. The girl enthusiastically comments on the princess's kidnapping, supporting Mine's decision to protect her from the aristocrats. Sister tells Maine not to worry. She won't tell anyone anything, even though her sister is very talkative, but she promises that she will restrain herself. Maine felt a bit uneasy. He thinks even though he didn't tell her anything about the dragon, everything will be okay. Sister bows to her wives and asks them to take care of Mina. She says that she needs to go now. She tells Mayna to try hard there, and she asks Aisha and the princess to definitely come for tea. They say goodbye. Sylphie says that she is somewhat worried about this young lady, but even so, she thinks that they should hurry to the city mayor. Aisha agrees with her. She turns to Maine and asks what he will do if he will go with them. He refuses and says that he has other things to do. There is a place he would like to go. Aisha says that they will go together then. Sylphie says that they will meet at home. The girls come to the mayor. The secretary tells the mayor of Samaba that Her Majesty Sylphido and Mrs. Aisha have come to see him. The mayor greets them joyfully. Sylphie apologizes for disturbing him. The thing is that she and Aisha got married in Lucas, so they came to say that they will be living here. The mayor shouts that this is incredible. He congratulates them with all his heart. He will immediately begin planning the congratulations ceremony. Sylphie refuses and says that she would like to ask him not to disclose it for now. He apologizes and says that he understands everything perfectly. Samaba asks who actually became her husband. Was it the Honorable Mr. Claude? She says that it was not him, that she and Aisha married the same young man from the ordinary townspeople. He is surprised. She says that maybe he knows him, or maybe not, but this young man lives outside of this city. And just recently he became an adult. His name is Mine. The mayor says that he knows this guy very well. He is a precious gift left by Dine and Yukino. He is happy for her from the bottom of his heart. Aisha says that she knew it, which means the mayor knows who Mine's parents are. Sylphie asks what she means. She says that just recently the craftsman who came to build them a bath said that there is no one in Lucas who does not know Main's parents. The mayor says that it is natural, there really is no one in the city who does not know about these two. The mayor says he can't possibly explain it all to them in detail, but they saved the town. Lucas only exists now because of them. For them, these two were heroes. The girls ask in surprise if Mina's parents were really heroes for saving Lucas. Mine stands in front of Dine and Yukino's graves and asks for forgiveness for not visiting them since he came of age. He says he brought sunflowers. He remembers that they were his mother's favorite flowers. He says the thing is that he is now married, and to two at once. They are not inferior in beauty even to his mother. They are very affectionate, very kind. In fact, he has a secret that he is hiding from them. He stole one person's abilities. He is afraid of what will happen if they find out about it, so he cannot tell them. But he is still sure that they will forgive him. They will definitely not be afraid of him, but he so wants them to support him, wants them to give him advice on what to do next. The parents advise Maina to boldly reveal the truth, emphasizing their trust and confidence in the successful outcome of the conversation. Maina imagines that's what they would say. He says he understands. He begins to shed bitter tears. He says that he still wants them to tell him themselves. He so wants to hear their voices. He asks them to come back. He wants them to meet Aisha and Sylphie, wants to laugh together and spend time as a family. He squeezes the grass. Suddenly, Aisha and Sylphie appear nearby. Sylphie introduces herself to Mine's parents, announcing her marriage and promising to take care of her husband, freeing her parents from worries. Aisha, sobbing, introduces herself as Maina's second wife, promising to maintain home comfort and ask for her parents' blessing. Main sheds even more tears and tells her parents that they have seen that they are very affectionate and kind. Suddenly, he hears a voice that tells him to be a man, not to worry and just try. He turns around and they ask him if something happened or if something is wrong. He smiles and says everything is fine. He asks why don't they go back to their house. Main is surprised by the wives' visit to their parents' graves. The women explain that they learned about the burial site from the mayor and wanted to formally meet. They ask what kind of flowers he brought. He answers that they are sunflowers they grew in his mother's native land. Sylphie is surprised by the flowers. Mine explains that his mother grew them and he gave the seeds to the florist. Main says that there is some expensive-looking carriage in front of their house, who left it here. Then Claude comes out of it in an epic way and says that he has finally returned to make the aristocrat who came specially to meet him wait. They recognize him. Claude shouts, "Isn't it Her Highness Sylphie who has come to them? It's a great honor for him that they have decided to accept his offer to duel." Sylphie says that she doesn't remember saying that she agreed to it. Claude says that there is a rumor going around town that Mine and the entire aristocracy are ready to fight for the princess. They understand that the conversation with the little sister clearly went off the rails. Claude leans over and says that their battle will take place in the spirit forest. He has already received permission from the king, so he should not even dare to run away. Min backs away and says that he will not run away. Claude says it's so disgusting that Her Highness Sylphie, and he lives in a hovel like this, it's just mind-boggling. He swears he'll get her out of this pathetic parody of a home. He says that the kind of house is determined by the abilities of the person living in it. A commoner living in this barn can never compare to him. He is probably very offended by his worthless parents who gave birth to him in such a poor house. Sylphie angrily yells at him to stop it. Mine is furious and says that he doesn't care if someone says that about him, but he will never forgive those who speak ill of his parents and the home they left him. Claude shouts at him, how dare he, a commoner like him does not dare to obey the orders of the nobility. Sylphie yells at Claude to stop, to get out of here immediately. If he keeps talking like that, then be sure that he will tear their agreement to duel to shreds. Claude tenses up and tells his servant that they are leaving. The poor old man obeys. Finally, he says that he will make him regret his actions in opposing the nobility. He tells Her Highness that he must take his leave. Claude leaves and looks angrily at those left behind. The old man is outraged by the damage to the family vase, a gift from Meliko's father. Claude abruptly cuts off the conversation, blaming Mine and humiliating Sylphie. A group of suspicious men enter the room. Claude angrily accuses them of robbery and threatening to expose the plan to sell the dragon's baby. Someone behind Claude says that there is no need to worry, no one will be able to find them that easily. Claude smiles and says that the ability to completely hide one's presence is what one would expect from a half-beast. The man in the back with the fur says that the reason he called them is because it's easy money again. Claude says that it is. The benefit from the plan that they are about to tell them will be even greater than what they will get by selling the dragon. He tells everyone that he wants them to use their abilities to enter the Forbidden Spirit Forest the day after tomorrow. The Beastman suggests that it is there. Claude says about the lair of the divine beast farrier. Claude says that if the collar of enslavement could turn even a dragon into a servant, with it he can even make a divine beast serve him. One robber says that it means they need to put the thing on the target's neck again. Claude convinces his interlocutors that a child beastman with a special collar will bring twice as much profit as a dragon. Claude tasks the group with capturing and killing Mine in the forest, promising a significant increase in reward for successful completion of the task. The man of that sister Maina humbly asks the princess for forgiveness for the fact that his wife caused her so much trouble. She also asks for forgiveness in tears and says that she could not hold back and blabbed. He says that the princess can roast them on a fire or boil them in boiling oil, let her do with them as she pleases. The princess is worried and asks to raise their heads, admitting her mistake. Aisha smiles awkwardly behind her. Mine sits next to them and asks them to get up. Sylphie says that they are embarrassing not only her, but her husband as well. She says, however, let them not think that she will forgive them, therefore the respected one must prepare to accept punishment. Maine is horrified by her words. Sylphie says that it's because Lucas has this famous lime tea that she really likes. She says that next time she should treat her to it. The tea leaves from which it will be brewed should be of the best quality. The woman starts to cry even more and rushes to the princess. Her husband tells her not to hug her highness just like that. Mine laughs and says that it's great that everything ended well. Aisha tells Sylphie that as far as she knows, the mayor told the people that it was just a rumor. Fortunately, after that, everyone calmed down. Sylphie says that she understands and that she will have to thank the mayor properly later. Mine says that they hid this information so that Claude wouldn't find out about it. Is there any point in hiding everything any longer? Sylphie says that maybe he's right, but it's better to keep quiet until the matter with the dragon is resolved. Mine thinks about it and agrees, thinking about the consequences if this information comes to light. Aisha says that she never thought that Mine would provoke Claude. Sylphie agrees and says that she was surprised herself. Maine apologizes and says that he simply couldn't keep quiet when he started laughing at this house. Aisha says that on the contrary, they are very glad that he did so. Sylphie says that they also love this house very much, which his parents treated with such care. While they live here, little by little, they begin to experience the same feelings as they do. In this house live the memories they left behind, as well as warmth and love. Sylphie says that's why when this Claude started throwing mud at him, she started to feel overwhelmed with anger. But when she noticed that not only she was angry but he was too, it seemed to her that she and Aisha came a little closer to his heart. Aisha says that is why they were so happy. Mine blushes. He remembers his parents' words that he should be a man, believe them, and tell them everything. He turns to Sylphie and Aisha and says that there is something he would like to tell them. He says it's about his ability and why he can use so many skills. He wants to tell them, his loved ones whom he trusts completely, absolutely everything. The girls blush at these words. Aisha asks if he is sure. He says he is sure. He wants to tell them he is only here because of them. Besides, they are his family after all. Here Sylphie sadly asks for forgiveness. The woman asks to postpone a frank conversation since she is not yet sure of the reliability of Aisha's trust. Sylphie stands up and bows, asking for forgiveness for being so impudent in disregarding his determination. Aisha tells him that she also wants to ask him not to tell her about it yet. Sylphie is surprised. She says that since it is very important, she wants to hear it as a member of his family, along with the princess. Maine smiles and says that he understands them. Then he asks to forgive him too. He decided everything himself without even thinking about their feelings. Sylphie's feelings are very dear to him, so he will wait as long as it takes. Sylphie thanks both him and Aisha. He gets up and says that he will go and train for now. He still needs to prepare for the fight with Claude. He says that if they want, they can help him with training. They are embarrassed and say that it is a bit embarrassing, doesn't he think so? Sylphie asks if he is sure that she has to be on top. Mine says to stay like that. Mine trains under Sylphie's guidance using Aruto's method. Aisha worries about the princess doing physical exercises. He told him that his speed was indeed commendable, but his body strength and power were no good. He handed him a piece of paper and said that the very basics were written here, he should practice every day using them. Mine thinks even though he leveled up through hunting and got used to his speed, but because he couldn't get stronger physically, he lost even to some low-level slimes. He does push-ups and tells himself that he must become as strong as possible. Then a man coughs on him and says that it is a very primitive workout, but he thinks he can understand why he uses it. Sylphie yells at Louis not to look. Louis is outraged at how much noise his sister is making. She tells him to be quiet as he approaches them laughing. Second Prince Louis introduces himself to Maine and announces the chosen location for the upcoming battle, the Spirit Forest. Yesterday Claude came in person to tell him about it. Louis is surprised that this fool came here himself. He says that this is despite the fact that the king emphasized that one cannot meet with the opponent until the day of the competition. As soon as it is over, he will personally open him up to conduct some experiments. Sylphie says whatever. Let him explain why they chose the Spirit Forest. She thinks that everyone already knows what kind of place it is, so why did her father give permission for the battle to take place there? Aisha agrees and says that due to spiritual activity, the monsters in this forest are much stronger than usual. They can even be compared to monsters from the dungeon. The king himself decreed that it is forbidden to enter this forest. Louis says he understands what Aisha is talking about. However, the terms of the competition and her destination were suggested by Claude. He decided that the battle would consist of hunting monsters in this forest, and the winner would be the hunter who caught the strongest beast. These are very simple rules and was the reason for choosing the Forest of Spirits. The king has allowed access to the Spirit Forest, knowing Claude's plans. Louis explains that Claude's goal is to capture the divine beast Fenrir. Maine says that it seems that his father once told him about a divine beast. Supposedly such beasts were used by the gods. Louis says that this is true, and they are also something like guardians of this world. They can be called protector gods who protect the human race. Mine asks if he means to say that Claude has decided to capture the divine beast. Louis says he doesn't want to think about it, but it's probably true. But if it's a divine beast, its value will be many times greater than that of a dragon. For Claude, a word like respect means nothing. Even in the royal family, he sees only monetary gain. Claude intends to capture the prized beast Fenrir for profit, likely using the former dragon-snatching party. The plan is to apprehend him as he attempts to enter the forest. To do this, they will have to use Mine as bait. Mine immediately says that they don't have to worry about that. Louis wants them to enter this forest at the same time as Claude. There they will be given a backpack and a signal ball. He asks to be careful and not to lose them, and also not to let them be stolen. Mine asks about the backpack and the signal ball. He explains that there are things in the backpack that will help him if the situation starts to get worse. To give a signal, he just needs to crush the ball. When he does, it will release a bright flash into the sky. Once their competition begins, he wants him to follow Claude until he reunites with his group. He asks Maine to try to make sure he doesn't notice him. Maine confidently replies that he understood him. Louis says that when this squad shows up, if he thinks he can defeat these mercenaries, then let him try to detain them, but it's still better not to get into trouble. He says he'll try to capture them with the insert. He says that even if he catches them, let him crush the signal ball, sending them a signal. When they see him, Aruto and the Order of Knights who will be waiting outside will immediately rush to him. He says that he understands. Louis says that, however, if he feels he cannot handle them personally, or if they capture the divine beast, he gives a signal without hesitation, regardless of any circumstances. Then Aisha comes and tells Louis to let her help them with something. Sylphie agrees and says that she can't give all the tasks only to her sweetheart. He says he understands everything, but if they move in a large group, they will most likely be easily discovered by an enemy group, and none of them want that. He asks if they could wait outside the forest. Along with a small detachment of the knightly order, Brother Aruto said that he would not be hindered by their strength. Aisha admires his highness. Sylphie says that means they will be under his command. That suits her. Mine says that if they are close, he will definitely be able to defeat everyone. Aisha says that as soon as they see the signal fire, they will immediately rush to help. Sylphie says that they will definitely protect him. Sylphie turns to her brother and says that she feels like they are in too much of a hurry to capture that squad. Sylphie says that they will even use the divine beast as bait. There is a limit to the absurd. She suspiciously asks if he will tell them the reason why they need to catch them as quickly as possible. The morning began with alarming news. The black dragon had left the nest. Finding the baby was vital, otherwise the country would be in danger. Mine is getting ready. Louis says tomorrow is the decisive day. Once Claude falls into their trap, they can get the baby dragon back. He turns to Mine and tells him to just know that he relies on his power to defeat the Orc King. Mine agrees. But he awkwardly asks if he could stop referring to him as his brother. He asks why. He asks to just call him Main. He laughs and says he understands, in which case he wants him to just call him Louis. Mine agrees again. Louis tells the knights to bring what they talked about. They bring a bag of coins and some kind of stone. Mine is shocked to hear that there are so many platinum coins and even a precious stone. Louis asks if he remembers the Orc King's corpse that his sister brought to the castle. His clan bought it. He says that this gem is actually the king's magic stone. It is very valuable, so he thought it would be better to give it to him. Mine thanks him. A girl in special clothes comes and asks for forgiveness for making them wait and that they are ready. Sylphie says that she still can't believe that tomorrow is the competition day. Aisha agrees and says how quickly time flies. Louis says that if everyone is already here, he suggests they get started. He would like to discuss their plan of action as soon as possible. He tells them that a carriage is already waiting for them outside. They should get in it quickly. After they meet the king, they will be taken to the forest. Mine asks if they are really going to have an audience with the king now. Aisha asks if she doesn't have to meet him. Louis says they'll go there together. Sylphie says there's no need to worry so much. After all, they are now their precious family. They are riding in a carriage. Mine thinks about family. The baby dragon was separated from its relatives. He must definitely return it back. Meanwhile, the cub in a collar lies in the dungeon next to the robbers. Claude comes up to them and asks how he is doing. He asks if his little dragon has calmed down. They answer that, as he can see, it is now completely obedient to his orders. The dragon makes a sound. Claude says that even a dragon cannot resist the power of the collar. At this time, Louis, Mine, Sylphie, and Aisha are walking through the kingdom. Then someone calls Sylphie. She turns around and sees little Ailey. Sylphie asks if she's sure she can leave the room since her body. Everyone looks at her. Ailey replies that she heard that she was going on a dangerous mission, so she decided to at least see her off. Arudo says that it is Ailear August. Their precious little sister. She has been in poor health since birth, so she hardly left the castle's borders. He says he thinks it would be great if her new big brother told her about his adventures. Mine asks to let him introduce himself. His name is Mine. As soon as he returns from the mission, he will definitely tell her everything. About Lucas, about the people from the city, and about his family. He wants to tell her a lot. Ailey happily asks if it is true, then he will wait for his return with even more impatience. She asks him to remember what he promised her. He agrees. At the outpost of the Forest of Spirits, the driver tells the knights that Lord Roselius's carriage has arrived. They are heading to the Forest of Spirits. He replies that he understands them, but just in case asks to allow them to conduct an inspection. The knight asks Claude if he is alone. He replies that as he sees it, so it is. The knight looks around and shouts that there is nothing special, so let them pass. They drive away. The driver notices that the carriage is full of robbers. One of them smugly says that no one will be able to detect them. A new carriage passes the outpost. The knight reports that Claude was alone. Just a few minutes ago, he passed these gates. He wishes them luck. Arudo asks Mine if he heard. The only way to the spirit forest is through this outpost. There is no other way. If Claude somehow managed to bring mercenaries with him, it means that they have the ability to deceive people's eyes. He says that even though the Order of Knights is watching over the forest, Maine must not let his guard down. Mine obeys. Maina is handed a backpack and asked to take it. It contains a signal ball in case of an emergency, so he asks not to lose it until the end of the competition. Maine looks at the backpack and says, "This is what it looks like. It feels like time has stopped right now." The knight immediately tells him that Claude is currently resting in the far tent. The three of them will guard him, so he must rest well until the morning. He obeys. He is told that this fire has the ability to repel any magic, so he does not have to worry about the monsters that live in the forest being able to get close to the camp. Mine thanks the knight, who asks him to have a good rest. Maine looks and says, "What a tent, there's even a bed." He sits down on the blood and thinks that, however, it is too early to go to bed. He needs to check if Claude is up to something. he uses a presence scan. He looks around and thinks that his ability, of course, is not capable of scanning the entire forest, but he finds Claude's tent and realizes that he is still alone inside. He looks at the thick forest and thinks that there are so many strong monsters in the forest, but he does not feel any people among them. Are these Claude's mercenaries really hiding in the forest? He finds some light, his scan barely reaches there. He thinks how strange, he feels such a strong aura, who could it be? He sees someone's face and is horrified. He wonders what it was, if it was a divine beast. His heart beats hard, even though he had no intention of resisting it. Why did it have such a murderous aura? Then Claude comes in and says he's here after all. He asks how about getting to know each other better in this cramped tent. He says that despite the fact that he came specifically to him, not only did he not greet him, but he also dared to pronounce his name without respect. Main asks why he came here. He thinks it's strange, shouldn't the soldiers outside have stopped him? How and why did he get into his room? Claude says that he came to give him one last chance instead of losing to him shamefully. It is better for him to give up. Main says that he is not going to give up so easily. Then Claude kicks him hard in the stomach. Claude takes the sword and says that in that case, when he loses, he will make not only Sylphie his, but also the girl who bears the title of the sacred bow. Main says that even if he somehow wins, he doesn't think they'll want to stay with a man like him. Claude stands with a spear pointed at him. A guard comes and says that he heard some noise. Is everything okay there? Main shouts to him. Claude says there is no problem, so let him stand and watch. The guard obeys and says he will do as Claude orders. Main does not understand what is happening at all. Claude calls Main a commoner again and says that no one dares to go against him. Main wonders why this is happening. He reads his stats. He is a medium two-handed spearman and an eloquence expert. He reads the characteristics of the guard, who is a knight of the Kingdom of August. His condition is enslaved. Main sees this and doesn't understand what it means. He tries to cut this clause, but nothing is removed. Here he realizes that cutting doesn't work. Claude kicks and presses his foot harder, causing Main to groan in pain. Claude tells him with a sly smile that this is his last chance. Claude turns to the knight and says that if this commoner refuses to surrender, then he will have to kill himself immediately. The guard obeys and says that he will do as Claude wants. Main keeps shouting at the guard not to listen to him, calling him by name. However, Derek does not react to his words. Claude threatens Main with the death of the guard knights if he does not comply. Main panics as he realizes the gravity of the situation. Then he laughs loudly and maliciously, saying what a beautiful expression he has on his face. He shouts that he wants him to show it to him more than once. Claude stands up and tells him that he doesn't have to give up if he doesn't want to. If he's so stubborn, he'll make Sylphie and Vyatka his toys right before his eyes. He leaves and tells him to show that expression again. Claude comes out of the tent and casts a dispel. After he dispelled the enslavement, the guard wakes up. He asks why he was in Mr. Main's room in the first place. Main stands up. Main comes up and asks if he's okay. He asks why he's standing there with his sword drawn. What the hell happened? The guard looks at himself. Main looks at his stats again. He sees that the enslavement is gone. He doesn't understand what Claude did to him. He thinks that this doesn't look like an ability. What is it? If he uses this on a dragon or a divine beast, it might be much worse than they could imagine. The next morning, a small animal is actively running in the forest on its small paws. A huge snake is crawling behind it, sticking out its tongue and enveloping the trees with its body. She eagerly opens her mouth to bite, but the beast gives his children a sign that they must act now. Many other small animals stick out and bite the snake from different sides. He says that this is excellent. The snake continues to wriggle and hiss. The main beast screams that all that remains is to finish him off. The animal flies away from the snake, and the snake falls lifelessly to the ground with a loud crash and its mouth open. The animals are delighted with the dog's reception, which she learned from her mother. They offer to bring the catch home and have a common breakfast. Seeing a large fire-breathing beast, the cubs joyfully run to their mother predator to boast about their hunting success. One of the animals does not understand why mommy came here. She never leaves their abode. Small children approach the animal, examine it, and notice something is wrong. The eyes of the animal are filled with bloodthirstiness and evil. Here one shouts to the others to stop and says that this is not their mother. The little wolves sniff her and do not understand what is wrong. Here the little animals are being collared by the same robbers. The girl who has turned into their mother says that that's it, the divine beast Fenrir is practically in their hands. The little one screams to the boys with great concern. The fake divine beast says, what a disappointment, even the divine beast cubs were deceived by her charm ability. The little wolf cub understands that this is not their mother. He shouts at the other kids to immediately move away from her, but they, already in collars, turn and look at him heartlessly. The robber says that one of them seems to be unaffected by her charms. She is even a little surprised. The little wolf cub screams, who is she? What did she do to his brothers and sisters? He approaches them furiously and angrily. The beastman replies that charm is an ability that shows the enemy what is closest to the heart. It is almost impossible to distinguish the fake from the real thing. A silhouette appears behind the wolf cub and asks if this is the one they said had the right magical power. The little wolf cub turns around in panic, but another robber catches him and tells him not to kick like that. He presses the wolf cub's body to the ground and tells him not to worry so much. They will sell him along with his brothers and sisters. The little wolf cub begins to howl. The main beastman tells Katsu that they have no more collars left, better to quickly soak him. Katsu tells his boss that this is such a waste. He heard that the divine beasts are able to communicate telepathically. If his mother is wandering around in this forest somewhere and he calls her, then there will be no end of problems. Kazu takes out his knife and says that this will really be unpleasant. With his other hand, he clamps the wolf cub's head and says that there is nothing to be done. He says goodbye to the dog and swings his knife. A scream is heard throughout the forest, indicating that Maine has noticed him. Maine wonders what this means. Did 5 people just suddenly appear in the forest? He immediately thinks of Claude's henchmen. It feels like they teleported here. He stands on a tree branch and watches Claude. The competition has just begun. Claude is really looking for magical beasts now. He hasn't seen him messing with mercenaries. Claude keeps looking around. Maine wonders how he could have done this if they were so far away, how he wants to go and find out who it is. He knows that there are quite a few people keeping an eye on the forest now, and if they were able to get into the forest unnoticed, then it won't be difficult for them to get out of here. Mine looks at Claude and thinks if that's the case, then why should he continue to pursue Claude? Suddenly Claude smirks. Mine gets scared and remembers the situation with Derek Brown. Claude stands and thinks that he knows everything. The commoner is hiding somewhere and watching him because yesterday, thanks to his subordination, he learned absolutely all the information about their plan. He says to himself, let him follow him. It's not for nothing that he deliberately leads him by the nose. From afar, some hairy monster is visible. He thinks that perhaps a good solution would be to subdue this macaque and order it to take him as far away from the lair of the divine beast as possible, so that this fool would be distanced from his real goal. He raises his palm and thinks that it would be just fine if they continued to dance to his tune, not knowing that he exposed their plan. Mine starts jumping through the trees and thinks that there is no doubt that Claude already knows about their plan. All this time, he was deliberately leading him away from his minions. A way that would allow them to enter the forest unnoticed. Maybe they used the same moving stone as in the dungeon, or it was the ability to completely disappear presence, or maybe a special magic of space and time. If they are capable of this, he needs to catch them as soon as possible. He jumps onto a branch and pushes off from it. He is still bothered by what he felt earlier, those 4 who were near the 5 mercenaries. He sees up ahead that they are still there. He uses the complete disappearance of presence and lands on one branch. He watches carefully. He sees people. They manage to get into the forest after all. Katsu stands and says that they are done with the work, so it's time for them to get out of this forest. The others agree with him. The girl calls the wolves and tells them to follow her. Mine guesses that these puppies are the Fenris. He uses his skill and sees that they are all enslaved. He realizes that, just like the guard yesterday, he is convinced that these people are definitely Claude's accomplices. He sees a small wolf cub on the ground, unaffected by the force. He thinks that Fenrir is wounded. He thinks, what a nightmare, could it really have been those mercenaries who did this? He uses magic, standing on a branch. If he hurries, he will still have time to save him. He will cut out his enhanced regeneration and insert it into this baby. He begs himself just to make it in time. After the magic, all the blood evaporates. The wound on Fenrir also disappears. At this time, the girl picks up the animals and says what pathetic animals they are. They are even easier to catch than a dragon. For her, this is a complete disappointment. Kazu says it's still a shame that one had to be killed. What a waste of money. Then they turn around and see that the little guy is standing on his feet. They scream, pointing at the baby. Katsu screams that this can't be, why is he still alive? He insists that he definitely dealt him a fatal blow, it's just unbelievable to him. He says this with his mouth open. The little Fenrir starts howling even more. One asks if he is trying to call his mother. Katsu scolds and tells them not to even try to underestimate him. He suddenly approaches the animal and says he will cut off its head. Then Manu immediately comes out and deflects Katsu's blow. Katsu looks on in horror and doesn't understand. Mine uses a flash of his magic eye in anger, which sends Katsu flying away from him. He falls down groaning. Everyone is worried. Mane asks Fenrir if he is okay. He barks. Mane smiles, realizing that he is healthy. Mine reads all their stats. Katsu curses and wonders what he just did. Karika says she'd like to know too. She didn't get a good look. Mine sees that they are all assassins and they all have the ability of total absence of presence, but each has different skills. Mine thinks, are they assassins? They all have the ability of total absence of presence, and what kind of ability is this charm? He thinks that it is still strange. He definitely felt the presence of 5 people, but there are 4 of them here. Maybe one has already left the forest. Then a huge hand grabs Mine and asks to be able to get so close to them. Who is he anyway? Mine understands that this is a disaster because he was hiding with the help of complete absence. The Beastman says that he is the one Claude told them about, Mine, if he is not mistaken. Kazu asks the boss to let him kill this boy because those who noticed them must be killed immediately. That's how it is. The little wolf cub behind him starts barking and Mine yells at him to run. Katsu readies his weapon and says he's acting like a hero when his head is about to be blown off. Suddenly, the entire silhouette of Katsu disappears, but blood splashes all over everyone. Everyone freezes in horror and does not understand what is happening. One little wolf cub confidently looks forward. Then the divine beast comes, calls them scoundrels, and asks what they did to his children. The bandits look at Katsu's remaining arm and head and are horrified. One says that this cannot be. One gets angry and shouts, how dare she kill Katsu? They promise that they will kill the beast. The divine beast confidently walks towards them. The main boss shouts that they cannot attack because this is an opponent that they cannot defeat by attacking directly. They must use the complete lack of presence and then put a collar on her too. The divine beast says that it doesn't think that something like that can fool her, and the beast's power immediately strikes down the 2 who were about to attack them. The beastman calls them stupid. Mine freezes, realizing that 3 people just died before his eyes. When he became an adventurer, he thought he would be ready for this, but how can you be ready for this? The boss shouts at Karika to order these cheeks to protect them. They will use them as a shield and run into the forest. Karika says she understands him and that it's a good idea. He tells the wolves to protect him and the boss with their own lives and in such a way that they can never be hurt. Mine understands that these puppies are under the same control as that guard from yesterday. If he tries to attack the mercenaries, the puppies will protect them and die. Karika turns to the beast and says that they are taking these children with them. The beast asks if they really think they can escape. Karika says that if she tries to attack them, her children will definitely die. Then the little wolf cub screams at his mother that it is not necessary and that these people can somehow order them to obey them. Suddenly, a dark force envelopes everyone, including Mine. The divine beast calls them pathetic fools. She will make them regret their actions. Mine starts talking, asking her not to do this. He understands that she is preparing a crazy wave for them. Karika tells the kids to die, but to stop this blow. The divine beast does not understand what her kids are doing. They must dodge. Then a small wolf cub comes out, pushes his brothers and sisters away, realizing that he saved everyone, but he gets hit. Here the wolf cub is protected by Mana, covering him with his whole body and falls under the mad wave of the divine beast. The little wolf cub winces. Mine says that he will not allow anyone to be deprived of a family. He will never allow it. The divine beast looks on in horror. Mine uses iron wall, increased strength, body enhancement, strengthened defense. He can barely stand, but he understands he still cannot hold on. The little wolf cub looks on in admiration. Mine can barely stand on her feet. The divine beast says that it is useless and that it will destroy him. Here the divine beast sees a special magic of space and time. Mane manages to resist. The blow passes him by. Mane breathes heavily and says with relief that it was over. The divine beast does not understand how this is even possible. The beast understands that this human youth was able to withstand the power of God. He calls him special. The god said that a special one was born among humans. The little wolf cub whines and rubs against Main's leg. Main says that he is glad that he is okay. He asks if he is worried about him, that he should not worry, that he is fine. He thanks him for worrying. The divine beast wonders if this young man is the special one. Mine turns around and wonders what happened to the other puppies. They hear screams that it's such a nightmare, so many trees have died in this forest. Mine starts to worry, are those puppies dead? That can't be right. The divine beast turns to him and tells him not to worry because they are alive. They escaped with those people. If she interfered, she would most likely only harm them, so she didn't pursue them. The divine beast stares at him, and Mine says resolutely that she will go and look for them. The divine beast tells him that he is quite an unusual person, and that he is willing to risk his life for her children. She had seen humans centuries ago, but none of them were like him. The little wolf cub starts barking. The mother says awkwardly that she understands. There is no need to be so angry with her. The divine beast bows to Main and thanks him for saving his child. Main panics and asks him to stop. It is not proper for a divine beast to bow his head. He asks for forgiveness, on the contrary. He says that in order to protect himself, he had to redirect the attack in another direction, which caused damage to her forest. The little wolf cub climbs onto the man's head and starts barking even more. The divine beast quotes what the puppy says, that it's not his fault, it's Mama who screwed up, so he tells Mine to cheer up. Mine smiles and thanks the wolf cub, who sighs contentedly. The divine beast asks him how those robbers managed to tame her children. He says it wasn't taming, but subjugation, if he's not mistaken. The mother says that the baby says that these scoundrels put something like collars on her children. Main says that if you recall, yesterday that soldier also had some kind of sacred collar on his neck. Mother thinks that a collar capable of subduing a divine beast, humans would not have the strength to create such a thing. Main says that he has stopped sensing the presence of those mercenaries, and one can only hope that they have not yet left the forest. The mother says that they are still in the forest and that they stopped nearby. Mine asks how she knows, and she says that things like a complete lack of presence are useless against the divine beasts. True, the little ones have not yet awakened this power in themselves. The problem is that they are using her children as a human shield, and with her destructive power, she won't be able to save them without harming them. She wonders what to do. Mine reflects that cutting out the subordination doesn't work and attacking them is impossible. It seems that he simply has no choice. Mine says that he will try to save her children. In order to protect the lives of these children, he will have to steal the abilities of their kidnappers. The mother says that if he has a plan, she will listen to it. It is rather feeble of her, but she has no choice but to rely on him, and the baby says that he wants to help him save his brothers and sisters. Mine is surprised. The mother asks if he will take him with him. Mine asks him if he really wants to go with him and save them, then he counts on him. He introduces himself and says that they will be acquainted. He says that he is glad to meet you. Silence falls. Mine looks at him in surprise. The little wolf cub asks what is going on. Mine shouts what he is saying. Before that he only barked, and now he understands what Mine is saying. The mother says that there is no need to be so surprised. He simply bestowed upon him the blessing of the divine beast. He asks again. The mother says that it is gratitude for him saving her child. Now he has the status of a friend of the divine beast, if we speak in human language. Mine is surprised and understands that something has been added. He asks if he can be friends with a divine beast. Is she sure that it is possible? The mother approaches and says that she will take them to the mercenaries, so let them sit on her back. Main wonders how it is to sit on the back of a divine beast. The little wolf cub urges him. The mother also presses. Main agrees and says that he understands. Later they gallop through the forest. Mine is surprised at how fast they are going. His mother tells him that they are right below that slope. She asks if he can jump and he says no problem. The divine beast stops and shouts that she is counting on him to save her children. They fly in the air and promise her this. He lands and thinks he can't sense the presence of the mercenaries, but he can sense the presence of the puppies. He turns around and sees two girls. He is surprised as soon as he sees them. They are Sylphie and Aisha. He asks what they are doing here. Mine asks them why this is so. Shouldn't they have waited beyond the forest? The little wolf cub shouts at him that there is only one person in front of him. They are trying to deceive him. He shouts that it is a fake. It's Karika who sticks a knife into his stomach and says that she thought that it was that mother who came. She didn't expect it to be him. The little wolf cub screams excitedly. Karika wishes him sweet dreams and she takes the wolf cub for herself. Then Mine reaches out and uses the impulse of the magical eye. Karika immediately falls unconscious. The little wolf cub asks if he is okay. However, Aisha is standing next to them. Mine tells the wolf cub that she is okay thanks to him. He was able to dodge the fatal blow. He sees Aisha disappearing. He understands, so this is the same ability of charm. The little wolf cub says that his brothers were also deceived by it. Mine thinks that now it is clear this ability is really dangerous. It is better to cut this ability from her while she is unconscious. The little wolf cub in a panic shouts to Mine that another one is approaching from behind. He must dodge the blow. Mane turns around, but before he can move, he crashes into a tree and stands there with his hand on his cheek, which was hit. He thinks, how can this be? He didn't even feel a breath of wind. The little wolf cub shouts to Mane to duck. He manages to do so. The tree is scratched. He wonders if it's really right in front of him. He uses the magic eye impulse, but immediately it turns out that his face is bleeding from his nose. He doesn't understand why. He gets up and still doesn't understand. Suddenly something flew towards him. What is it? He sees the silhouette of a puppy. He wonders if this is the puppy's magical eye, if he reacted so quickly to his ability. The beastman, surrounded by 3 Fenrir, asks Mine if he was trying to attack him just now. These puppies can completely protect him even from the attacks that are visible, and despite the fact that they are still puppies, that's how divine they are. The little wolf cub shouts to Mane, who tells him not to worry. He understands that he can't do anything now. It turns out that he has no way out. Mine uses a full scan on the enemy. Leo says that he has a truly impressive healing ability. He reaches out and tries to cut, but immediately becomes the one everyone attacks. He falls, hits his back. Mine is horrified they reacted even to the cut. The little wolf cub runs to him and says that he should not attack. Leo says that he is a fool. He understands what will happen if he tries to attack him. 3 Fenrir stand next to him. Mine realizes that he can't attack and can't use cut. Leo says that since he saw them, he should die. Leo disappears. Mane thinks that now he has even more problems due to his complete lack of presence. He begins to think that his older brother Arudo would certainly have easily dealt with him. He recalls his words that in a battle against an enemy, the main thing is to be able to learn to read his flow. If he can't, then he himself must create it. The little wolf cub shouts to Mine that he is right behind him and he must dodge. Mine follows and manages to get away. He thinks that this can't be. Can this little guy see him? He remembers that he warned him just recently. Leo is surprised that he dodged. Was he lucky? The little wolf cub shouts to Manu that he is attacking from above. Manu uses sleep on him. He begins to resist this action. Leo lets his guard down for a moment. Mine thinks he was able to resist, but it still affected him. Mine asks the wolf cub if he can see him. He replies that he can. For him, he literally glows red. He asks if Mine can't see him. Mine says that he is invisible to him. The little wolf cub says that in that case, he will tell him where he is. Leo thinks, can this boy really see him? That's impossible. The little wolf cub watches closely and shouts to Mine that he is right above him in front. Leo tries to kick him, but Mine manages to dodge and run away from him into the forest. The little wolf cub asks Mine what they should do if they can't attack him. Mine remembers his father's words that today they will learn to hunt again. Dane asked if he saw those rabbits. He needed to catch them alive. He then asked his father how he could catch them if he left his traps at home today. His father then told him that this would be his lesson. If he looked around, he would see that there were many things in the forest that could be used to create traps. Back in the present, Mine grabs the rope and uses the carving skill. The little wolf cub shouts to Mine that he is approaching from the left. Mine asks why he is highlighted in red. He replies that he doesn't know. Someone tells him that divine beasts see magical power. Mine wonders if he is hearing it in his head. Volochanok says this mom. The beast says that everything in the world has its own magical power, not only people but also stones and plants. When they use their powers, they release it, so they, the divine beasts, are able to see through things like the complete absence of presence. The mother says that she is surprised, however, that the baby has already managed to learn to see magical power. The little wolf cub agrees. The little wolf cub says that until this moment he could not see this light. Most likely, this power awakened when those fools almost killed him, because after Mine saved him, he could already see this light. Mother asks Mine if he has an ability that allows him to influence level growth. Mine thinks about it. It seems like something like that fell into his hands while he was on holiday at the hotel with the springs. He finds the system shows him that the experience gained is increased by 10 times, the experience needed to upgrade skills or received during battles as well as other is increased by 10 times. His group comrades also receive this effect. Mine tells his mother in his mind that it seems like her baby is growing quite well while he's around her. She says that's really interesting. Mine connects 2 ropes and pulls it down the trees. The little wolf cub shouts to Mine that the enemy is ahead and that he is incredibly fast. Mine dodges the blow, still tightening the rope. For now, he will continue to play tag with him, and then he will create a flow himself. Leo says that this boy keeps running back and forth, but he already knows all his tricks. He lists his abilities for himself: sleep, healing, complete absence of presence. He sees these vines. Apparently, if he touches them, he will be able to know his location. After all, he is just a child, so now he will show him the difference in experience. The little wolf cub shouts to Mine that he is already attacking. Mine is alerted. He shouts that he is right here in front of him. Mine holds out his hand again. Leo says that sleep won't work on him, and Mine uses speed reduction. Leo doesn't understand what it is. His body has become so heavy. He looks around and sees a vine above them in the grate. Mine uses cut, which traps Leo in a net. He is indignant. Why don't the Fenrir puppies help him? Mine says that it is useless to ask them because this trap is not an attack that can hurt him. Leo screams in anger. Mine remembers the past. He also tried to catch rabbits, but he couldn't. He tells his father that it's hard. Mane looks up sadly and purses his lips. His father strokes him and says that he shouldn't make that face. His father then told him that if he didn't forget today's lesson, he would definitely succeed next time. He smiled then and asked him to try harder. The divine beast tells Mine that he was able to catch them without causing harm, so he's not bad. Leo is still in the net and Karika is tied up next to him. Mine tells his mother that this little one helped him. He definitely couldn't have done it alone. She tells her baby that he's grown up enough. He happily says that it's all thanks to Mine. The divine beast comes up and asks why they don't remove the collars from her babies now. We'll kill them immediately. The divine tells her not to even doubt. Karika says that for their own survival, they will use her babies however they want. Karika turns to them and orders them to kill this baby as cruelly as possible. The little wolf cub becomes wary. The mother gets angry. Karika asks what she will do now. The little wolf cub tells his brothers and sisters to stop. Karika says that if she lets them escape, then she will, so be it, cancel the order. Mane comes out and asks her to stop. Karika says what does he need, so let him move away from the wolf cubs. Mine reaches out to one of the wolf cubs and asks sadly why they can so easily dispose of someone else's life. Karika asks what he wants to do since only they can remove these collars. Leo watches them. Mane takes the collar off the wolf. Everyone is surprised. Leo and Karika are horrified. They don't understand how he managed to remove it. Leo yells at Karika to stop the boy or they will lose their shields. Karika gives the order to kill the boy quickly. Mine uses royal compulsion and tells them to be quiet. Karika shuts up abruptly. Leo doesn't understand and asks Mine what he did to her. The divine beast is shocked and wonders if there was just a royal coercion. They are okay. They ask what happened, if there was something wrong with them. They start to discuss heatedly. The mother thanks Mane for saving her children. Mane smiles and says that there is no need for thanks. She turns to the robbers and says that now all that remains for them to do is accept divine punishment. Mine asks her to wait and says that there is no need to kill them. Mother uses her power and kills the criminals to smithereens. The divine beast asks for Mine's forgiveness, but those who choose to go against the heavens must be punished. And as a servant of God, she wants to hear from him why he can use the Demon King's ability. Mine explains everything. She says that means he has not only a full scan, but also cut and paste. Mine says that he stole the royal compulsion from the Orc King. She says that she understands that, but what about the ability with which he removed the collars? He says that the Orc King also possessed special magic of space and time. To be honest, he was not completely sure that he would succeed. When he used this ability before, a black hole would open up, but the Orc King, without even creating one, could move through space. He says that the thought flashed through his mind, could he really use space and time? Then he decided that in this way he could remove the collars. He holds up the collar and says that he thought that if he could use this ability on them, he would be able to move them to another location. She says she understands. She asks him to tell her, and he told someone else about his power. He says that it is not so. The divine beast says that because its power is too great, it is dangerous. It is not a power that a person should have. Mine looks at her sadly. However, if she was given to him by God, then henceforth, as a servant of God, she will protect him. Mine repeats in surprise, is it really possible that a divine beast will protect him? He thanks her. She remembers and asks why he came to this forest at all. He tells about the dragon and his child. The mother asks in horror if a human could have stolen the baby dragon. Mine says that it was most likely the mercenaries who used the collars. She says there they are, people whose lifespan is so short, two greedy creatures. She moves away from him. Even though the mercenaries are already dead, Claude is still alive and free, but if he hands over this collar to the king, that will change. He remembers that Claude promised him that he would make Sylphie and Aisha his servants right before his eyes. He sees the characteristics of the collar. The owner needs to put his power into the collar. The collar can be put on everyone, after which the magic will be activated, and the subordinate will obey. To dispel the effect of subordination, the owner's permission is needed. Mine thinks as if he will allow Claude to use such a dangerous object again. The little wolf approaches Mane and says that it turns out that because his mother killed those scoundrels, he now has problems. His mother turns away from them awkwardly. Mine says in a panic that nothing like that. Besides, they wanted to kill them themselves, so she simply had no choice. As long as he has this collar, everything is fine. He asks if that is true. In any case, he will help him. Mine and his mother are surprised. The little wolf cub says that Mine saved them, so he wants to save him too. He offers to go save the baby dragon together. Mother asks Mane if he will take him with him. He asks if it is possible. It could be dangerous for him to go with him. She says that her baby is able to sense the dragon's magical energy and also understands its speech perfectly. She tells him that he will be useful to him, and besides, she thinks that he likes him. Mane wonders if he really liked him. Mine says that he will feel much more confident if he goes with him. They will go to save the dragon together. The little wolf cub barks happily. The mother tells Mane that she trusts him with her baby. The other siblings leave, say goodbye, and tell their brother to try harder. They all say goodbye. Mine stands at the edge of the cliff, holding a ball in his hand. He says that he needs to quickly return to the castle and report on many things. The ball explodes, fireworks start in the sky. Mane looks and screams, "How cool, what is this?" They stand like that for a while, and then Mane says, "Why doesn't someone stop hiding and come out already?" Claude emerges from the forest and tells Mine that he gave the signal, meaning that he has decided to admit his defeat. Mine holds out the collar and asks him if he knows what it is. He evasively replies that he has no idea. Mane says he took this thing from the mercenaries who were in the forest. They said it belonged to him. Claude curses them in his mind and asks Mine what happened to them. Mine replies that they are all dead and he is going to take this thing to the king and tell him about all his evil deeds. Claude says, so that's how it is, then even he won't be able to get away with it. Mane asks, does that mean he really admits that it belongs to him? Claude says that it is indeed his, however. Then suddenly the collar is put on Mane's neck. Claude says that he will be punished instead of him. He will have to admit all his sins instead of him. This is an order. Let him obey the nobility as befits a commoner. Mine easily removes the collar and says that such a thing will not work on him. Claude is scared. He thinks it's absurd. How did he manage to get the collar off himself? Mine tells him that this is the end for Claude. Claude screams that he is a pathetic commoner. He orders the forest monster to crush this little thing. The monster comes out of the forest right to Mine. Mine wonders if it's really subjugation. He doesn't have time to remove it. Then Sylphie comes out and uses her sword to cut off the monster's arm. Mine happily shouts her name. Claude thinks that since Sylphie came here, he has a great chance. He takes the collar in his hands. He shouts that Sylphie now belongs to him, after which he pulls the collar towards her, but then Aisha stops him with her arrow. Mine is even more happy. Sylphie says that it is to be expected from the holy bow. Aisha stands aside and watches them. Claude is left alone without the beast and without his powers. A sword is pressed to his neck. He trembles and squeals in fear. Sylphie holds out her huge sword to him and says that she will not forgive him for raising a hand to her darling, calling him pathetic Claude. Claude has been captured. Mine heads to the castle to report everything to the king. King Farron stood in the castle hall, holding a large ring in his hands. It was a submission collar. The king said it was a forbidden magical tool. He added, thinking that such a thing could do more than just capture a divine beast. Mine said that Claude had 6 of these collars. The king guessed that Claude was planning to use the collar to kill. The king said that now Claude would definitely not be able to get out of it. He praised Mine and told him to have a good rest. Mine happily agreed. Arudo told Mine that everyone was waiting for them and led him through the corridors of the castle. The king remained, looking puzzled at the ring in his hands. Then the king called out to Mane and said that he wanted to ask him something. The king asked whether the murderers had put these collars on the divine beasts. The king said that the collars could only be removed by those who put them on. He asked Mane who had managed to remove them and how. Mane hesitated. The king replied that it was probably not worth asking about and told Mane to forget what he had said. Then he turned and left. The king went down to the dungeon from which terrible screams were heard. The king turned to the guard and asked if he had found out anything. At the end of the dungeon, Claude was hanging, wounded and chained to the wall. The guard answered the king's question in the negative. He said that Claude clearly wasn't going to spill his secrets, even though it was painful for him. A cry came from the side. It was Claude's father, Roselia. He asked the king how this could be understood. The rabbit answered Roselia that his son, Claude, was hiding a baby dragon. The father turned to Claude and asked him if he could imagine what the dragon would do to the humans if he found out they had stolen his child. Roselia shouted, "Is Claude planning to destroy the whole country?" Claude told his father to disappear. Claude said that he was doing all this only for the sake of Roselia's clan, although his father should have been doing all this. Afterwards, Claude turned to the king. He said that if the king wanted the baby dragon so much, he should give him Sylphia. Claude's father was amazed. Claude said that commoners should know their place. He told the king that the only one who was perfect to be his daughter's partner was him. The king answered Claude that he understood his hatred. However, he, like Mane, was born a poor peasant but became king thanks to his ability and luck. Claude replied to the king that the dirty blood of commoners flows through his veins, and that is why he must understand that he cannot allow the blood of his family to be stained even more. Roselia shouted angrily at his son, asking what he was talking about. The king calmly told Roselia that his son was right about everything. King Farron told Claude that to become king, he had to get his hands dirty more than once. So he uses it on him without any hesitation. He showed Claude the collar of submission he was holding. The king added that after Claude confessed everything, he would most likely make him Mine's servant. Claude was terribly scared that the king had the collar of submission. Claude screamed in horror that this couldn't be. He said the king couldn't use it. If he used the collar, he would become a criminal. Claude screamed that the king had no right to use it. The king asked his prisoner if he really believed that he could not use the collar. Claude screamed at his father to stop the king. He continued screaming in fear to save his son and begged the king not to do this. At this time, Mine and Arudo approached Sylphia. She was hugging a fluffy wolf cub. The animal tried to escape from the princess's embrace and asked Mine to save it. Aisha stood to the side next to Sylphia. She looked at the wolf cub with delight and asked the princess to let her cuddle it too. The little wolf cub screamed that the princess was embarrassing him and asked her to let him go. Arudo asked if this was the same divine beast. Mine said affectionately that it seemed like the wolf cub liked the princess. Behind them stood a girl in glasses, Louie. She said that she would also like to touch the beast. Arudo was surprised that the little wolf cub was strong. Mine replied that he was quite strong for such a small creature. Arudo replied that in that case he would like to fight the beast, but Mine told him not to even think about doing that. The little wolf cub rushed at Mine, barking and grabbing his face. Aisha screamed that it wasn't fair since she hadn't even touched him. Sylphie screamed at the divine beast that she needed to feel his fluffiness a little more. Mine told the girls to let the baby rest. After all, he had just been in a battle. The little wolf sat on Mine's head and grumbled that people were very strange. Sylphie and Aisha looked at each other sadly. They were upset that they couldn't cuddle the animal, but they still agreed. Mine told Sylphie and Aisha that the real them were still very different. The girls asked him again. Mine said that in the forest, when one of the mercenaries used the ability of charm, clones of the girls appeared in front of him. They looked very similar to them, but their aura was completely different. Aisha was surprised that the charm created the princess and her. Mine replied that he was really confused then. Fortunately, the little wolf cub told him that it was not Sylphie and Aisha and thus saved him. Aisha said that she had heard of this ability. Sylphie said that if she was not mistaken, the one on whom this ability was used would see the most important thing to him before him. Aisha said in surprise that they were the most important thing in Mainkun's life. The young man continued. He said that on the day when the two of them came and saved him in Lucas's forest, he realized that he could truly trust them, so today, too, he knew that they would definitely come to his aid. Sylphie thought that her darling believed in her from that day, then she did not dare to hear the secret. Aisha asked to tell them when the princess was ready. Aisha asked to let them know about it together because they are family. Sylphie thought that Aisha also gave it up for her. Sylphie thanked them with tears. Even though she had a family by her side all this time that she could trust completely, she was worried for some reason. Sylphie said that she would not hesitate anymore. At this time, the guard entered the door. He apologized for interrupting those present during their rest and asked everyone to come to His Majesty. Mine asked if they had found out the location of the dragon cub. Mine with the wolf cub, Arudo, and the girls came to the castle. The king apologized for making them come. Sylphie asked the king if they really managed to find out where the dragon cub was. The king replied that Claude himself had told everything. Claude in the dungeon said that the dragon sucker was in Adora and begged the king not to use the collar. Arudo said that Adora is a dungeon city. It would take at least half a day to get there on horseback from the castle. Apparently, they have no choice but to go there immediately before the dragon notices that they are missing. The little wolf cub on Miles' head screamed in fear. He said that things were bad and that the dragon was heading for Adora. The dragon learned that his child had been kidnapped by humans. The divine beast assumed that the dragon would be in the city before sunset. Mane shouted that it was almost evening and they would never make it. The wolf cub told Mane to calm down. If he uses the magic of space and time, he will definitely make it in time. The little animal told Mane that by going on the road alone, he will be able to prevent everything. The divine beast said that it was up to him to decide whether to save Adora or not. Mine frowned and clenched his fists. Everyone in the castle hall turned to Mine, asking if everything was okay. Little, he said that a message had arrived from Lady Fenrir. The dragon was already on his way. The king was surprised that the message was from the divine beast. He said it was telepathy. Mine agreed. He said that the dragon would most likely arrive in Adora before sunset. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Mine thought that there was too little time left before sunset and they would not be able to reach Adora. It was simply impossible. He asked himself if this was really the end. Would go there right now. The young man thought that he had no reason to hesitate. The king asked how Mine wanted to do this. If he was not mistaken with his ability, Mine would definitely not be able to do this. Sylphie and Aisha asked Mine if he would tell them the secret of his ability. They said that they had been ready to listen to him for a long time. The girls said that if he thought that now was the best time to tell, they would accept everything as it is. No matter what happens, they will always be there for him. He replied that in order to save the people living in Adora and so that they could trust him, he would tell them everything about his ability. The divine beast asked Mine what he was thinking about since there was less than an hour left until sunset. There was no time or point in telling him everything about his ability. The beast said that even if Mane told them, they would only be afraid of him. Now he had to go to Adora immediately. There was an hour left. King Farron told Mane that he must have had reasons for keeping silent about his ability. He asked if the young man was sure he wanted to tell everything now. There was no point in forcing himself. Mine was at a loss. The reason he hid his ability was because he thought that even if he told them, they would only be afraid of him, but he still made up his mind. Mane said that during his life, his father often said that it was important to trust your family, that the bonds you could rely on were truly priceless. Mine asked if they could trust him wholeheartedly if he hid his power from them. He thought that such trust was unacceptable. He hates the thought of having to leave the king's question unanswered. Only the owner of the collar itself can remove it, but the one who removed them from the divine beast cubs was Mine himself. The youth said that he had to use the ability of the Orc King. Everyone was very surprised by this news. Mane continued by saying that he had received 2 abilities from God, Cut and Paste and Full Scan. By combining these 2 abilities, he discovered that they could create incredible power. The king asked in surprise. Aruto asked Louise if she could imagine such a thing. She replied that she had no idea. Main-kun continued to talk. He said that if he used a full scan on people, things, and even monsters, all of their information would appear before his eyes. A full scan would include their name, gender, age, race, profession, and abilities. By opening these abilities with the help of cut, he can insert them into himself and thus they become his abilities. Everyone was amazed. No one could understand how this was possible. Sylphie and Aisha recalled the moment of battle when the king's axe disappeared. Aisha screamed that this couldn't be. The girls realized that at that moment their husband had stolen the Orc King's powers. The king replied that this was unthinkable. If this were true, it was hard to even imagine how strong this ability was. Main-kun continued his story. He said that the Orc King had another interesting ability. With it, you can move from one place to another in an instant. Aruto muttered that it was unbelievable. Louis said that it was just like a teleportation stone. That way they could easily get to Adora. The king replied that Mine's ability was very unusual. However, it was definitely reliable. His wife, giggling, confirmed it. Everyone was happy about Mine's abilities. Everyone wanted to go save Adora together. If Mine was with them, it would be the same as the strength of 100 people. Aruto stood aside angrily. He asked Mine if he should give in to the fight with him. Brothers' questions. Aruto said that he asked Mine and demanded an answer from him. If Mine had stolen his ability, he would have definitely won. Aruto did not understand why Mine did not do so. Mine replied that ability was almost the same as life. I think that's what they say when you get abilities. Up until that point, Mine had only stolen abilities from a person twice. The first time was on the day he came of age when the carriage he was riding in was attacked by bandits. They wanted to kill everyone in it. The second time was when Mine joined the guild. He stole an ability from an adventurer who wanted to kill his own comrades. Aisha guessed it was Reru-san. Mine said that there were people in this world who could easily take someone's life, so he decided to. That he would only use his power to save lives against those who wanted to take someone's life. He would do it to protect his family. So that time, he used all of his power. No matter how much he fought with Aruto, he would never take away his ability. Aruto said that it was Mine whom he knew. He apologized for suspecting Mine. He turned to the king and said that he would go to Adora with them. The king agreed. The king said there was an hour left until sunset, so he asked to use all his strength to save Adora and the baby dragon. Louis said she would go too. Mine explained that he was about to open a portal connecting the castle and Adora. Once the portal opened, everyone needed to jump inside. Mine waved his hand and opened a large, dark portal. He told the others that everything was okay and they could go. Aisha and Sylvie looked at the portal with fear. They were afraid to go in. Aruto asked to go in first. He told Sylvie that if she was afraid, it would be better to stay in the castle. Aisha and Sylvie took courage and entered the portal. The little wolf cub told the Maina that it was time for them to go too. The king turned to Mine and the divine beast. He asked them to save Adora and everyone inside her. They confidently confirmed that they could do it. The portal closed, the hall was empty. The king said that everyone had disappeared and told the boys to try. The heroes arrived and stood inside a large arena surrounded by a stone wall with columns. Aruto asked if this was the entrance to the dungeon. Aisha said that it was a teleportation stone. Mine told her that it was the power of the dungeon. Mine said that he had purposely brought them here to make it seem like they had been transported by a teleportation stone. Aruto noted that Mine had thought of everything very well. The little wolf cub called out to Mane and pointed to a huge tower in the distance. The little beast said that he could feel the baby dragon's magnetic energy from there and that he was on top of that thing. Apparently the dragon is in that tower. Mine shouted that once they rescued him, they would need to take him outside of Adora. There were several people standing outside the tower doors. One of them, sitting next to bottles of alcohol, turned to another, Lord Lidor, and asked how long they would have to hang around in this place. The other boy sitting on the stairs chimed in. He grumbled that he was tired of looking after the cub and asked why Claude hadn't returned yet. The guy standing by the door agreed that Claude was late. The other one suggested indifferently that Claude had been screwed. The one standing at the door said that this was unlikely to be the case since Claude had a collar of submission, exactly the same as the one he was holding in his hands. The guy said that with this thing you can even command the king and even Her Majesty Sylphie herself can be subdued. They said that soon she will serve them. The kidnappers of the baby dragon laughed ominously, imagining how they could subdue everyone with the collar. At that moment, their laughter was interrupted. Something fell to the floor. It was the door lock. Mine kicks the door open from the other side and the guy flies away with it. The other kidnappers jumped up in surprise. One of them shouted that they were robbers. Sylphie runs up to him and stabs him in the stomach with her sword. The third guy screams for the mini-dragon to burn them, but before he can finish, a small wolf cub runs into the kidnapper and pushes him aside. When the heroes entered the room, all the kidnappers were lying on the floor. Arudo, passing by, noted how powerful the divine beast's attack was, which was to be expected. Sylphie said that the baby dragon was fine. Arudo said that when Mine kicked down the door, he thought he would definitely beat the first person he met, but who could have known that he would be killed along with the door? Mine timidly replied that he didn't think the door would be so flimsy. The little wolf cub stood next to the baby dragon. He called Mine and told him to quickly take the collar off the baby. Mine told the little dragon to stand still so that he could quickly take the collar off him. Mine took off the collar and said that everything was okay now. He told the baby dragon that they would take him to his mother. Then the baby dragon spread his wings and screamed. Everyone covered their ears from the loud sound. Arudo shouted, asking what it was. Aisha asked why he was shouting. The divine beast told Maine that this was the dragon's way of calling his mother. It was too early to call her. Maine thought with horror how dangerous the little dragon's mother was. Maine turned around and shouted for everyone to run out of the tower as fast as they could. The walls began to crumble and the mother dragon was making her way through them. Mine shouted Sylphie's name. He saw her with horror under the rubble of the tower wall. Just as everyone feared, a sudden attack by the mother of the dragon. Aisha watches, groans, and sadly denies it. Mine turns to see Sylphie fall with a wound on her side. The ground cracks next to her. He screams her name in horror. The huge dragon roars at them even more. The little wolf cub quotes that this guy, that is Mine, stole a child, so the dragon wants to kill him. Mine understands that for the dragon they are only people who robbed his family. However, this is not true. Mine screams that it wasn't him. He can't afford to steal someone's child. He screams at Sylphie that he'll help her now. Let her be careful. He attacks. The dragon does not allow him to approach her. Mine begins to understand that he is deliberately interfering. The dragon's huge paw flies towards them. Mine says not to do this and inflicts a wound on the dragon. Mine sees Sylphie and realizes that her magic power is fading. He runs through the tiles, which fall one after another. The ground beneath them collapses and Arudo catches them. His brother immediately asks if he has any skill that can help Sylphie, and he replies that he does. They all run away from the dragon's paws. Mine shouts for Arudo to help Sylphie. Then the dragon's huge paw is hit by an arrow. Aisha says she won't hurt anyone again. Arudo tells the others to distract her while he helps Sylphie. Arudo tells the dragon that he is here. Mine picks up Sylphie and worries about her brother. He tells her to take care of her and he will distract the dragon. Mine says he will definitely help. The little wolf cub hurries him. Aisha is worried behind him. Sylphie's strength is running out. Sylphie groans, sees Mine and calls him husband, then asks about the baby dragon if he is okay. The baby dragon asks what she is talking about. Mine tells Sylphie that he is fine. Maine is shouted to do it faster. In an instant, Sylphie disappears from Maine's hands to a safe place. Mine apologizes to her mentally. The little wolf cub suggests maybe the regeneration skill will help. At this time, the dragon is fighting with Arudo in full force. Mine is worried and approaches him. Arudo asks if he helped Sylphie. He replies that she is safe and that he returned her to the castle. Arudo thanks him for his help. Mine says that they need to return as soon as possible. They are worried about them. Arudo says that he will only return with him. Mine says that for now, we need to deal with this dragon. Arudo says that we just need to get his child back. Mine thinks that the child was kidnapped and was going to be killed. Arudo says that if the dragon understands words. Then a little dragon and a little wolf cub fly up and shout to leave him to them. Everyone looks at them in surprise. They fly to the mother. The little wolf cub tells her that they came to help her child. The child is safe, so he asks her to return back to her nest. Arudo asks what he's doing. Mine replies that he's trying to persuade the dragon. The little wolf cub turns to the others and asks them to say something. The dragon growls even more. Mind screams that he wants to destroy it. Arudo understands that his mother wants to destroy this tower. The dragon flies up and destroys the top of the tower. Arudo and Maina fall down. They realize that everything has collapsed. It could fall on people. Suddenly they realize that everything is hanging in the air. Arudo asks Mind what it means. Is it one of his skills? The little wolf cub screams that this is an eye of attraction. Soon his skill will end its effect. He leaves everything else to others. Arudo wonders if this is really a beast skill. Mind says that it is anyway. So far so good. He is happy. He uses his carving skill. Many stones pile up and stop the action. Arudo thinks that he uses his carving skill to remove most of the bricks. He thinks that's not bad. The people below ask if they are saved. Arudo looks up and realizes the dragon is still there. The people panic. At this time, inside the tower, the robbers come out to the broken wall and one shouts, "Is this really a dragon? It can't be. Has she really come to find her cub?" He wakes up the other two and tells them it's time to get out of here. They say this town is finished. The dragon roars, his cry striking without the action of ordinary people. Mind talks about his destructive cry. Arudo asks if that is his ability. Mind says it is not. He looks at his stats and says that this dragon has no ability. Arudo is surprised. Mind looks surprised. This hasn't happened before. He doesn't understand what's going on. A fireball appears on the stats. Mind understands that everything is bad. Arudo tells Mind to watch out. Mind leaves and realizes he has to create a flow. Arudo and Mind look on in surprise. Here the little wolf cub and the little dragon fly and shout that they will help too. The little wolf cub uses the gravity magic eye. The little wolf cub relays the little dragon's words that he also wants to stop his mother and asks for forgiveness for Sylphie. Mind says he will hold off the dragon. He asks Arudo to evacuate the citizens. He says that they are finally here and all he can do is hope for him. Mind says that he is just doing what he can. He leaves and shouts to his brother Arudo that he hopes for him. Arudo stays behind, the words that Mind is doing what he can running through his head. Here Arudo shouts to everyone that he is the first prince of the kingdom, and he came to save them from the dragon. He says his brother is holding him back now to reduce the number of victims, everyone who lives in this city. The citizens begin to say that it is indeed His Majesty Arudo. He has come to help them. Arudo asks them not to panic and to help each other to save the city. He turns to the adventurers and asks them to search the buildings for the remaining people. Those who have medical skills, let them help them, let them do what they can. They all shout and say that this is how it should be, this is their city, they will do everything possible. They scream, His Highness's brother holds back the dragon, he is still just a boy, why are they any worse? The dragon is preparing for a new roar. Arudo yells at Mind to be careful, who yells that he won't let that happen. He stops right in front of the dragon. The dragon is silent. Mind asks how he feels about this. He applied it to his mouth, but still growls that everything flies and cracks. Mind immediately uses an iron wall on them. He wonders if she really took it off herself to insert. Mind says she hurt her cub again. The little wolf says she is angry at the helpless humans who stole her cub. He says that dragons are like that. They don't recognize those who are weaker than them, but also him because he allowed this to happen. She teaches him a lesson. Mind repeats the words that she only recognizes those who are stronger. He decides that he needs to make her think that he is stronger. Mind remembers the wounded Sylphie and shouts that he will show her all his anger. Arudo and the little girl sit against the wall and realize that the dragon is looking at them. The dragon flies off the ground. Mind realizes that the insert doesn't work on her. People from below tell them to jump because the house might not hold. Someone shouts that it is dangerous here, so they must stand. An agitated woman shouts at His Highness to leave. Arudo holds pieces of concrete over the little girl and says that he can't abandon his people and just run away. The dragon flies towards them at high speed. The soldiers shout for Arudo to run. The dragon flies past. They are surprised at the monstrous speed. Arudo says it's dangerous. The little wolf cub with her baby in mind fly up and stop right in front of the mother, stopping the dragon's attack. The people below are surprised that this boy stopped the dragon's attack. How did he even get here? The dragon roars. Mind says that if he wants to fight so much, he will move him to a place where he can do it as much as he wants. He says that he will not allow the city to be destroyed anymore. Arudo shouts at Main to stand still because he can't handle it alone. Let him stop. In an instant, the dragon, along with the animals and Mind, disappear. Aruto screams in horror. People are indignant. Did the dragon really disappear? They say that as soon as the prince's brother stopped her blow, they disappeared. Someone says that it can't be. The second one assures that it is true. A woman with a little girl, Anna, thanks Aruto for saving her daughter. Aruto says that they were saved thanks to his brother, so she should tell him this. The little girl says that they are grateful to him too. She asks if they will meet him again. Aruto raises his head and says that they will definitely meet. He thinks and does not understand how it all came to this. They came to save Adoro, but the city was destroyed, Sylphie was injured, and he himself did not stop mine. He slams his fist on the wall in anger. He keeps thinking that Adora is safe now, but Mine is fighting now. He wonders where he is. He asks him to come back alive. At this time, in that very cave full of slime, Mine and the dragon are fighting. The dragon and the little wolf ask where they are. Mine answers that they are in the dungeon under the city. He says that this is an amazing place. It is filled with magical power. Mine explains that before, when he used his abilities, the destruction did not spread to the upper and lower floors. So here you can fight in earnest without hiding your abilities from people. The little wolf asks if this means he can win. Mine says he doesn't know. Mine says he thinks he can definitely defeat her with them. They look at him in surprise. The dragon strikes. They dodge. Mine thinks about the dragon's tail and that it should hit. He uses 2 swords and a boost to them. He attacks, but the steel dagger breaks, and he begins to realize that he cannot hurt her tail. The dragon also attacks with its tail. Mine uses full evasion and moves away from the dragon's attack. Mine lands and thinks that he won't be able to use the ability from the orc general again. He understands that the ability to restore the dagger is no longer there, and he doesn't have it either. The dragon prepares to attack again. Mine says that we must avoid the dragon's attacks. The dragon roars with all its might. Mine is barely holding on and thinks he will defeat her with this power. He pushes off the ground and flies straight towards him. He has some kind of invisible weapon in his hand. Mine asks how he feels about it. He was finally able to cut through his roar. Suddenly some smoke comes out of the dragon's mouth. Mine understands what's going on. Fire appears at the dragon's mouth. Mine wonders if this is a fireball. Here he is. No matter how strong the enemy is, if his ability disappears, he will be confused and will definitely show his weakness. The fire at the dragon's mouth disappears. Mine shouts to the cubs that now is their turn. The little wolf cub shouts to his mother to get a gravity eye with magic enhancement. The little dragon also helps. The little wolf cub tells his friend in surprise that he, too, is getting stronger next to Mine. Mine yells at them to hold her just a little longer. Mine flies towards her, telling her that the horn will be confiscated. The little wolf cub supports him and tells him to go ahead. The dragon looks at him in rage, then the weapon in Mine's hands disappears. He looks at his empty hand in shock and does not understand why. The little wolf cub screams that his gravity eye has disappeared too. Mine doesn't understand why or what is happening at all. The dragon throws a fireball at them. Mine falls amidst the flames, thinking that her abilities and skills should have been wasted. He keeps falling down. The little wolf cub and the little dragon are floating in the air. Mine wonders if the dragon really had an invaluable ability. Mine falls down and in the process thinks that she had no abilities or skills, so where did this fire come from? He understands that his body will burn and he will lose consciousness. He sees a wolf cub in front of him and doesn't understand where the fire is, why it's here. The baby cries and asks not to die. He says, doesn't he have restoration? Let him take it then. Mine doesn't understand anything. The baby tells him to take the restoration he gave him. Mine sees that the fire doesn't reach them. The little wolf explains that the dragon holds back the fire with an iron wall received from him, so let him recover faster. Mine is surprised by this information. He sees the little dragon standing and uses this ability against his own mother. He begins to think that the gravity eye and magic enhancement can only be used after an hour, which means their abilities haven't disappeared. He holds out his hand. The little wolf cub says happily that the smoke from the regeneration has started. The little wolf cub states that they need to hold off the dragon while Mine rests. He is sure that she will not lay a finger on him. Mane is horrified and thinks that this cannot be done. They must run away from here. The little wolf tells the dragon to watch the fire. Mine tells herself to hold on just a little longer. The little dragon signals the wolf cub, who uses a fast run and increases his strength. His mother always told him that attack is the best defense. He hits the dragon with his head that she runs out of fire. He is happy, asking because it is cool he stopped the fire. The next second, blood starts flowing from his head, he falls to the ground, and then blood flows all over his body. The little dragon flies to the wolf cub. Mine stands up and says that this little wolf cub came to help her child, and Sylphie, being injured, was worried about her own cub. And she trampled their good intentions. He clenches his fist and declares that he cannot forgive her. He sees the dragon and wonders if there will be a roar now. He calls upon his power, heals the wolf cub, and shouts, "Why is she so cruel? Why does she not even spare her own child?" Mine uses the magic eye flash, jumps straight at her with a knife. He uses strong arm enhancement, and martial arts at the same time. He cuts her horn with the shark's glow. The dragon screams in terror. The dragon has one glowing eye. Mine lands and realizes that the enhancing abilities have disappeared. The abilities that were active have been blocked. He understands what's going on. He says in his head that when the enemy is lost, his weaknesses are revealed. She used his plan, created fire in the same way. Fire flies to him. He uses the magic of space and time, redirecting fire to another dimension. Mine says that he can't be fooled twice. A portal appears above the dragon, which directs her own fire at herself. She screams in horror. She growls all over the fire, and then only steam comes out of her mouth. She falls helplessly to the ground. Her skin gives off steam as if it is burning. Mane can barely stand and says that, apparently, that's all. He suddenly gets scared when he remembers about the wolf cub. He turns around and sees the wolf cub being held by the dragon. The first one shouts that it was great. He defeated the dragon. The dragon throws the wolf cub to Mane, who shouts that it was cool, and the dragon himself flies away to his mother. Mine hugs the wolf cub, who is surprised by his reaction. Mine says that thank God he is alive. He replies that it is because he saved him. Mine says that he was so scared for them. Why did he act so stupidly? Why didn't he run away? The little wolf cub says through sobs and fragments that he didn't want him to die. Maybe he did something wrong. Mine also cries and says that nothing like that. He thanks him several times. The little wolf cub calls Mine. They see the little baby dragon standing next to his mother. The wolf says that if he heals her, she will not attack. Mine believes him. They heal her. The little wolf cub says how cheerful she is. Mine wonders if it is because of the dragon's life force. The little wolf cub quotes that she apologizes for Sylphie too. Mine says that it was their fault in the first place since they stole her cub, so let her forgive them too. The little wolf says that she forgives him and acknowledges his strength. Mine thanks her. Suddenly, they feel someone's presence. Someone asks what is going on here. Why is the black dragon here? He came, sensing the presence of something strange. Mine wonders who it is. He turns sharply, realizing who it is. The stranger says that there must be a troll caretaker here. The little wolf cub tells Mine to be careful. He has strong magic. Mine asks again. The stranger says what an interesting animal he has. Mine becomes wary. He sees the stranger has long ears and a cold look. The stranger says he was looking for the troll caretaker, but they are also nothing. Mine wonders who he is. The stranger says that his person will take the dragon and the dog from him. This stranger with long ears and a scary aura tells the Mina to just give him the dragon and the divine dog, and then he will turn a blind eye to what they did in his dungeon. Mine sees his gaze and wonders what his dungeon is, who he is anyway. He arms himself and confidently shouts that he won't give up. Mine immediately uses a full scan, but its characteristics are blurred. Mine can't see anything. The stranger suspects and looks around. Mine's face betrays his horror and shock. The little wolf cub asks him what's wrong with him. Mine doesn't say anything and only thinks that he not only doesn't see his abilities. The stranger scolds him and asks if he really decided to look at him. Mane is horrified that he could sense the scan. He wonders if he has this ability too. The stranger asks him humorously what he is afraid of if he really wants to run away. The little wolf cub quotes the dragon and says that she said that abilities don't work on him. Mine gets scared. The stranger holds out his hand and tells him not to think he will leave alive after pointing a sword at him. Mine screams that he won't give up so easily. 4 against 1, they have the advantage. He understands to himself that he is too strong. It is dangerous to engage in a fight with him. The stranger laughs and says that even Mane's voice is shaking, and besides, after these words, numerous monsters come out and stand behind the stranger, waiting for his command. Mine is surprised by such a number of magical creatures. The little wolf cub wonders where they came from. Even he did not feel their presence. The stranger mockingly says that it is a pity that it is not 4 against 1. Numerous trolls and orcs are standing right behind him. Mine sees and thinks that this is impossible. He controls the orc general without being their king. The stranger tells him to calm down, even if it's his terms, 4-on-1. Mine sees his confidence, so he might well win. It's too dangerous. He tells himself that he must run, otherwise they will die here. The stranger tells him that he will not leave a wet spot, calling him a reckless man. The dragon roars, causing everyone to fall, losing their balance. He asks if this is the dragon's terror bite ability. Mine realizes that the roar is distracting him, so it is necessary now. They disappear. The stranger looks around and searches for them. He says that he no longer feels their presence. A complex ability like the Orc King, a dog, or a dragon did it. They were able to escape from him. He thinks that this man is very lucky. But soon this world will belong to demons. There will be no place left to escape to. He calls the monsters after him and says that they will destroy the country of people to create a new dungeon. But before destroying the kingdom of Augusta, you need to catch up and kill that man, that is, mine. The mother of the cubs says that everything is clear now. They have moved from Adora to the dungeon. Mine says that a strange creature appeared there and it is very strong and they escaped from it here. She says that's why. They dragged this huge thing into the forest, talking about a dragon. Maine apologizes because he couldn't imagine anything else but the forest. She asks how strong the enemy was that Maina, who can take away abilities, escaped. Mine tells her she is surprised that he couldn't scan him. If he can't see only the dragon's ability, then he can't even scan his name. She offers him to look at her like this. He asks if it is really possible. She hurries him and asks if he needs permission from someone else. Mine scans and is amazed by her data. She asks him to read out loud all the abilities he sees. He reads it out loud. She asks if there really are any others. He replies that there are only these. They shine strangely and aren't particularly visible. She says that it seems that racial abilities are not visible. In addition to the roar, the dragon also has a terror bite which deals damage and creates panic. There is also an ability that delays the enemy for 1 hour, a terrifying roar. All burning fire blzhss, all 3 of these abilities are racial. She too, as a divine beast, can use a terrifying roar, but because of it, some problems arise. Such abilities can even kill someone. The little wolf cub says that they felt it on themselves and almost died. Mine gets scared. The mother asks menacingly. She asks again if it's true. He denies it, and the little wolf cub insists that they were almost killed by this dragon because it's cool. She asks again in a rage. Mine backs away. Even the little dragon is scared of her anger. The divine beast says that she will eat this dragon. The dragon behind is seriously scared. Surely Lady Fenrir has the fear of the king. Then someone says that she is always hot-tempered. She asks if has come to stop her. The voice says that he has come to save his brother from death. The mother says that he is, as always, not indifferent. This is the elder dragon, the second divine beast. Mine looks at the second divine beast in surprise. He closes his eyes because it is so bright. Mine wonders if it is his wings that are glowing. They turn to him and ask if he can hear him. Mine looks up. The second divine beast says that he has established a connection with him, so they can talk. He thanks him for stopping her subordinate's rampage. The wolf explains that he is a divine beast standing at the beginning of all dragons. Each divine beast leads its own kind. She descended from the first god and led all the forest beasts. Maine says that this is how they are related. The little wolf cub tells Maine that he and Yerm are also related. How cool. The second divine beast says that he is their precious family member. Here the mother reminds him that he was on the verge of death because of someone, asks what they will do about it. Answers that he will not say that he understands Fenrir. Here the little dragon protects his mother. The little wolf cub says that he protects her with an iron wall that he got from Mine. Fenrir speaks menacingly. How interesting, this child is going against her. Let him not regret it. Maine shouts at her to wait because the dragon is not to blame. Maine screams that it was all the people who stole him. Fenrir says that the one who bares his teeth at a god will suffer from him. She says that her boy will come up with a punishment for them. They look at each other in shock. She says that the time will come when he will replace her, so let him judge these dragons himself then. She turns to the dragons and says that now, the sooner they leave, the better. Her forest is too small for them. Nothing can be done about it. The little wolf cub and the little dragon look at each other. Then the first one smiles and says that he didn't understand much, but he suggests playing again sometime. They all say goodbye. Main shouts at him not to let people catch him anymore. He responds warmly. Yerm sighs tiredly and with relief. He turns to his sister and thanks her for forgiving his subordinate. She says with embarrassment that she did it for her boy. Yerm turns to Main and also thanks him from the bottom of his heart. He replies that he could not have done it alone. It is all thanks to the people who were with him and believed in him. Yerm says that it turns out there are good people. He asks if he remembers whose fault it was that all this happened. He says that, however, for his services, he will ask all dragons not to attack humans. May thanks him. Says that then they can say goodbye. Fenrir asks to wait, because in the dungeon Mine met a strange guy. He said that the guy looked like a human, but he could control monsters. After thinking, he answers that it is most likely a demon. Mine is surprised by this conclusion. He says that recently there was a murder of the Demon King who held a neutral position, after which a new king was born. He says that it seems like he intends to take over their world. Mine begins to wonder if this is the Demon King who wants to rule the world. Yerm says that, however, there are no obvious signs except for point clusters of monsters, but it is better to report this to the King of People. Main replies that he understood him. When he returns, he will tell him everything. Fenrir says that it is time for them to go back. She thanks him for looking after her son. Mine says that it is thanks to him. He helped him a lot. The wolf cub asks Mine if he is already leaving. He says with a smile that he is. The little one asks if they will meet again. Mine looks at him in surprise. The little one says that he can come here any time. He also says that he can come here any time. He strokes his head and promises this. The little wolf cub starts to cry and says that he didn't get to hug Aisha and Sylphie for the last time. He wants to go with Mine. He starts to cry too. Fenrir asks him to stop. He knows how hard it was for her. Let him not make her worry about him anymore. She turns to Main and asks he understands her too. Main answers that he understands. To say anything to him, they hug for a long time while all his other brothers and sisters, including Fenrir, wait for him and Mine. Night falls. Mine moves with his ability to some building. He sighs in relief. He says he's finally in Adora. He looks around until someone tells him he knew he'd show up. He turns around to see Arudo standing by the pillar, telling him that he believed that Maina would come. Mine looks at him in surprise and asks his brother Arudo how long he has been waiting here. He looks at him decisively and even angrily. Mine expects an answer from him and some sternness. Arudo says that his clothes are in tatters. He calls Mine an amateur. He awkwardly asks him for forgiveness. Arudo suddenly approaches and hugs him without a word. Mine stands there, surprised, with her arms down, waiting for his words. Arudo finally says that he was worried about him. He congratulates him on his return and warmly calls him his brother. Tears fill Mine's eyes. He begins to sob and repeats several times that he is back. He apologizes to him for making Arudo worry. He tells him that it is nothing. Arudo pulls away and says that he really wants to listen to him, but first he suggests returning to the castle. He agrees with him. Arudo notices something and looks at him in surprise. After a while, he adds that they are returning with the Lord Divine Beast. They turn around to see a little wolf cub jumping towards them, wagging his tail and showing all his teeth. Far away at the same cliff, Fenrir stands, mentally addressing her boy and asking him to become even stronger so that she will not worry. She tells him to definitely come home.